Chapter 1865. In the distance, Yi Xian was still beating up the male god and had no intention of stopping. Yuan Qing glanced at Yanji. Tell him to stop. Yanji came back to her senses and quickly pulled Yi Xian back. She was a little angry. Do you know who he is? Yi Xian blinked. No matter who he is, as long as you don't like him, I will beat him up. Yanji stared at Yi Xian. You want to frame me? Yi Xian shook his head and was a little disappointed. Miss Yanji, am I such a person in your heart? Yanji said in a cold voice. You're dishonest. Yi Xian was about to speak, but at this moment the male god who was being beaten suddenly said angrily, Yanji, you bitch, how dare you instigate your people to beat me up, you? Yi Xian flew into a rage. How dare you insult teacher Yanji? Die. As soon as his voice fell, he suddenly rushed out. Boom. Before the male god could react, his head was directly smashed by a punch. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. Directly killed? Yanji's face was a little pale and she said with a trembling voice, You? Yi Xian looked at Yanji. He insulted you. Yanji said angrily, Do you know who he is? He is the vice dean's grandson. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Second generation? Yanji glared at Yi Xian. Yes, he is a second generation. Yi Xian was a little disdainful. Yi Xian look down on this kind of second generation the most in my life. Xiao Ta suddenly said, Young lord, before you speak, can you use your brain, Yi Xian? In front of Yi Xian, Yanji said in a deep voice, You idiot, you think you can act recklessly just because you don't like it? Without strength and background, don't talk about acting recklessly. Even if you want to do a good deed, you have to think twice first. Yi Xian frowned. Is your god race so complicated? Yanji was just about to speak when an extremely terrifying pressure suddenly swept over from afar. Seeing this, the expressions of the divine scholars became serious. At this moment, an old true god appeared in front of everyone. The person who had just arrived was none other than Gao Qi, the vice president of the School of Divinity. Gao Ke's gaze fell on Yi Xian. Did you kill him? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Gao Ke's eyes narrowed slightly. Who gave you the guts? As he said that, he looked at Yanji. Is that you, Mentor Yanji? Everyone in the surroundings gazed at Yanji. Will Yanji protect Yi Xian? Yanji fell silent. It has nothing to do with me. Yi Xian smiled and said nothing. Gao Ke stared at Yanji. Teacher Yanji, this human was protected by you. But now he is openly killing people in my god race. What do you think? Yanji was silent. Gao Ke sneered. Don't tell me you want to protect a human? Yanji sighed softly. She looked at Yi Xian. I don't really like the god you killed. However, he is still a god, not a human. You killed a god, so you deserve to die. As she said that, she began to chant in God's language. She wanted to activate the seal in Yi Xian's body. At this moment, her voice suddenly stopped. Because a sword was directly inserted into her throat. Yanji's eyes widened. Yanji was filled with disbelief. The person who attacked was Yi Xian. Yi Xian shifted his consciousness and a sword light flew out. Before Gao Zhu in the distance could react, his head was sent flying. Although Gao Ku was the vice dean, most of the gods in the Theological Institute were scholars. They only liked to research and were actually very weak. Of course, the most important thing was that he, Yi Xian, could already enter the fourth spacetime. After seeing Yi Xian kill Gao Ku in an instant. This chapter is not finished. Please continue. At this moment, everyone present was dumbfounded. Kill just like that? Yi Xian looked at Yanji and smiled. Are you a little surprised? Yanji stared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian grinned. Your seal is useless against me. Yanji said in a deep voice. We are friends, right? Yi Xian blinked. Nonsense. As he said that, he raised his hand and slashed. Yanji was directly erased. Friends. He felt that it was a little funny. This woman actually wanted to trick him. At this moment, Yuan Qing suddenly said, Human. Yi Xian looked at Yuan Qing and the others. Hand over all your academic research immediately. The gods were furious. Yuan Qing quickly said, Give it to him, give it to him. Quickly. As she said that, she took out a storage ring and handed it to Yi Xian. The rest of the gods were a little confused. One of the gods said in a deep voice, Instructor Yuan Qing, how can we be threatened by a human? Before he could finish his words, a sword was pressed against his forehead. The god was stunned. Then he said, I think it's fine. As he said that, he quickly took out a storage ring and handed it to Yi Xian. The gods. Soon all the gods gave the storage rings to Yi Xian. The storage rings contained their lifetime's research. Yi Xian took all of the storage rings. He looked above his head and said with a smile, "Goodbye." As he said that, he disappeared. As soon as he left, Yuan Qing heaved a sigh of relief. As if she thought of something, her face became gloomy. This human has become a great disaster. We can't let him live. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of her. He grinned. Surprised? Yuan Qing was stunned. Just as she was about to attack, Yi Xian raised his hand and slashed. Yuan Qing's head flew into the air. How dare you? A furious shout suddenly resounded from afar. Yi Xian turned around and vanished. As soon as Yi Xian disappeared, an old man showed up. It was the Grand Elder Yanzhu. Yanzhu's expression became ferocious when he saw Yi Xian flee. How dare you? He clawed forward as soon as he finished speaking. Countless spaces away, Yi Xian frowned slightly. He suddenly turned around, and at this moment, a giant hand came straight at him. A powerful pressure immediately enveloped the space-time he was in. Yi Xian frowned. It's chasing me from so far away. He didn't think too much about it and he slashed with his sword. Bang! As the sword light shattered, Yi Xian retreated repeatedly. However, the enormous hand was shattered as well. As soon as Yi Xian came to a stop, a powerful aura rushed towards him. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. He did not choose to fight it head-on. Instead, he activated the green profound sword and disappeared into the space-time. As soon as he vanished, Yanzhu appeared. Yanzhu frowned deeply when he saw Yi Xian disappear again. This human had actually escaped right under his nose. Right at this moment, the patriarch of the god clan Mo Yen appeared. Yanzhu said solemnly, "Wasn't this person sealed by Yanji?" Mo Yen shook his head. "I was too careless." Yanzhu sighed softly. "This Yanji was also careless. We've underestimated this human." Mo Yen spoke in a low voice. "Our top priority right now is to find this person as soon as possible. Yanzhu, if this chapter is not finished, please turn the page." Nodding, he seemed to have thought of something and asked, "Has God General Yuchen died?" Mo Yen nodded, "Yes." As he spoke, his expression became slightly gloomy. "I was investigating this matter earlier and now I still don't know if he really died at the hands of that woman in a plain dress." Yanzhu sighed once more. "I never expected that the human race would actually develop to such an extent." Mo Yen said, "Now isn't the time to be thinking about this. Our top priority right now is to find these people as soon as possible. Since they were able to break through the restrictions set up by my god clan, it means that they're extraordinary geniuses. Now that they've arrived in our cosmos, I'm worried that they'll come into contact with the divine Dao civilization. Especially Yi Xian. He stole the spatial rings of Yuan Qing and the others." As he spoke, he suddenly turned around. "Pass down my order to search for Yi Xian with all our strength." "Understood." A voice resounded not too far away. Mo Yen looked into the distance. "Elder Yanzhu, you'll be personally in charge of this matter regarding Yi Xian. I'm going to investigate the cause of God General Yu Chen's death." Yanzhu fell silent briefly before he spoke out. "I'm going to mobilize all the divine generals." Mo Yen was stunned. "All the divine generals?" Yanzhu nodded. "That's not all. I'm going to mobilize the divine guards as well as the 10 divine generals." Mo Yen spoke in a low voice. "Grand Elder Yanzhu, he's just a human." Yanzhu looked at Mo Yen. "I can't underestimate them anymore." This was especially so for Yi Xian. He had instantly killed the vice dean. What did this mean? This means that in the short few days he was locked up, his strength has increased again. Mo Yen remained silent. Yanzhu sighed in a low voice. "My intuition tells me that we might have even underestimated that woman in a plain dress and that man in a green robe." Mo Yen said in a low voice. "Earlier, Yanji told me that the woman in a plain dress should be at most a rank 8 expert. Because that sword can't lead to the 4th dimension Yanzhu suddenly said, "She is dead." Mo Yen. Yanzhu looked at Mo Yen. "Patriarch Yanzhu is dead. He had died because of his own carelessness, and because he had underestimated his enemy. If we still believe what she said, then we may end up like her." Mo Yen remained silent. Yanzhu continued, Up until now Boya is dead, Yen is dead, and Yuchen is dead. There's also Yuanqing and the others. Why don't we pay attention to these humans? Moreover, those humans broke through the restriction we set up without anyone's help. This means that their talent and creativity are no weaker than us gods. Our god clan must take them seriously. Mo Yen said, Grand Elder is right. From now on the experts of the clan are at your disposal. However, that Yi Xian has already escaped. How are you going to find him? Yan Zhu smiled. It's not difficult to force him to show himself. Because he wants to protect those humans. And those humans will become his greatest burden. Mo Yen nodded slightly. I understand. Go do it. Yan Zhu turned and left. Mo Yen also turned and left after a moment of silence. Right after the two of them left, a man suddenly appeared here, and it was the imperial monarch. The emperor who was almost killed by the woman in a plain dress. The emperor took out the portrait in his hand. After looking at it for a while, he looked into the distance and said softly, The god clan wants to kill Senior's brother. With Senior's brother's current strength, he is definitely not a match for the god clan. And Senior's brother and that green-robed man have no intention of helping. I alone won't be able to resist the divine race. No, I have to find some helpers to help young Master Yi at the critical moment. At that time I'll cripple myself a bit. This way young Master Yi will owe me a huge favor, and the favor he owes me is the same as Senior Sukun owes me a favor. Damn, this monarch is truly a genius. With that he turned and disappeared. Go find helpers. End of this chapter. Chapter 1866. Yi Xian arrived at the fourth layer, found a quiet place and sat down cross-legged. He took out all the storage rings and began to scan them with his divine sense. The spatial rings contained the lifetime research of the divine clan scholars. To him these things were still of great value. Humans were inferior to the divine clan, and since they were inferior, then they naturally had to learn from them. That was nothing to be ashamed of. Yi Xian sighed softly after he finished absorbing all the ancient books in the spatial rings. Needless to say, the divine clan's divine civilization was far more advanced than human civilization. There was no comparison at all. For example, the divine clan had explored the sixth layer of space-time, but humans hadn't even figured out the second layer, and some had even separated the two into separate studies. They were too far behind. Yi Xian started to study how to control the fourth layer of space-time. Needless to say, the divine clan's understanding of the Tao of space-time was very thorough, especially when it came to controlling space-time. Infinite World. Desolation City. There was a city governor's estate in Desolation City, and the reason Desolation City was so orderly was because of this city governor's estate. To be more precise, it was because of the mysterious city governor, a 9th rank expert. However, he wasn't an ordinary 9th rank expert, because he was the oldest 9th rank expert in the infinite world. When Emperor Jun arrived at the city governor's estate, a black-robed old man blocked his way. The old man's appearance was 70% to 80% similar to a human, and the only difference was that his ears were extremely sharp and his eyes were dark blue. The old man glanced at Emperor Jun but didn't speak. Emperor Jun smiled. Tell that old geezer that I have something good to tell him. The old man nodded slightly. Wait a moment. He turned around and left as soon as he finished speaking. It didn't take long for the old man to appear before Emperor Jun again. Your Majesty, the old master doesn't want to see you. Emperor Jun roared with laughter. Tell him that I was almost instantly killed. The old man frowned when he heard this. Based on your Excellency Emperor's strength, no one in this world can kill you instantly. Emperor Jun smiled. Just tell him, Jing Yu. The old man hesitated for a moment, nodded and left. A while later, the main gate of the governor's residence suddenly opened and Jing Yu walked out. He glanced at the emperor and said, Master invites you in. The emperor walked into the manor and followed Jing Yu to a small courtyard where an old man lay. He was wearing a thin linen robe and was missing an arm. This person was the city lord of Desolate City. No one knew his name. The emperor was taken aback when he saw that the old man was missing an arm. You old fart you, the old man glanced at the emperor. It was that human girl who almost killed you, wasn't it? The emperor mused. Don't tell me she cut off your arm. The old man said indifferently, What do you think? The emperor's face turned grim. Even you can't beat her? The old man sneered. Fight? Are you kidding me? Before the old man could do anything, he was almost beheaded by her. The emperor was speechless. The old man slowly closed his eyes. What is this divine clan doing? How can this human be so strong? The emperor thought for a while and said, the god tribe is after her. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. The old man then turned to look at the emperor. Arrest her. The emperor nodded. Kill her and you'll get 2 types of crystals. After a moment of silence, the old man said, who is the current patriarch of the god-human race? The emperor said, Mo Yen. The old man frowned. How did he become the head of the family with his IQ? The emperor smiled. He probably doesn't know the senior's true strength. The old man was silent. The emperor continued, Old man, the god race is doomed this time. I know one of their elders, so I wanted to warn them, but... At this point he shook his head. After some thought, I decided to forget about it. The old man was puzzled. Why? The emperor sighed. I've looked into it. That senior Zhou Xian is from the human world and she cares a lot about her brother in the human world, young Master Yi. At this moment the old man suddenly took out a portrait. The person in the portrait was Zhou Xian. The old man looked at the emperor. Is this the one? The emperor nodded. That's him. Old man, why do you have it too? The old man said after a moment of silence, she told me that this was her brother and she just stared at me. He clenched his right fist. Luckily, the old man was smart enough to promise that he would take care of this young man. Otherwise, the old man's head would have flown off his neck. The emperor was speechless. The old man looked at the emperor again. Is the young man here? The emperor nodded. He is. And now, the entire god-human race is after him. Damn it. The old man suddenly sat up. Have the god-human race lost their minds? Do they know what they're doing? The emperor shook his head. Obviously not. The old man was puzzled. Then why didn't you just kill them? The emperor sighed. I think there are 2 reasons. First, she has no interest in the god-human race. Second, she probably wants to train her brother, young Master Yi. The old man said solemnly, there are 2 reasons. The emperor nodded. I wanted to talk to the god-human race, but when I found out that they were going after young Master Yi, I knew that the feud between them would never be resolved. The old man shook his head. The god-human race is retarded. The emperor said, you can't blame them entirely. After all, they created humans. They wouldn't think that a human could surpass them. The old man said, I'm confused about that as well. Humans were created by the god-human race. How could a human be so powerful? The emperor looked at the old man. Do you know what level she's at? The old man shook his head after a moment of silence. I can't. He couldn't. The emperor said, even you can't see through her, old man? The old man said indifferently, if I could see through it, would I still be able to find out that I was killed? The emperor smiled bitterly. The old man suddenly asked, where is young Master Yi now? The emperor said, he ran away. I don't know his exact location because young Master Yi ran a little too fast. The old man looked into the distance. What's the god-human race doing? The emperor smiled. They're making a lot of noise. As far as I know, the god-human race's first elder, Yanzhu, has already called back the god-human race's 10 immortal generals. They're obviously up to something big. The old man looked at the emperor. This young Master Yi can't. This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. Something's wrong. The emperor nodded. I know, but now is not the time for us to make a move. The old man smiled. You want to make a move at a critical moment so that this favor will be more valuable. The emperor nodded. That's a selfish motive of mine. He then sighed. Old man, you and I can't see through Senior Su Chong's strength. That means she's at least at the 10th rank. Here's the question. How did she reach the 10th rank? The old man was silent. The 10th rank? He had been studying it for millions of years. But he still hadn't reached the 10th rank. He smiled bitterly at the thought. A human had surpassed the limit of the 9th rank and reached the 10th rank. That was terrifying. The emperor suddenly said, Old man, the god-human race isn't weak. If they risk everything to kill this young man with your and my strength, I'm afraid. The old man fell silent. He wasn't afraid of the god-human race, but he wouldn't underestimate them either. After all, this was a race with an ancient heritage. Even in this endless universe they held great weight. A moment later the old man said, Keep an eye on the god-human race. No matter what, we can't let them kill young Master Yi. The emperor nodded. All right. With that he stood up and left. The old man suddenly said, you must find a way to contact young Master Yi. Tell him to be careful of the god-human race. I'm afraid they'll kill him right away. The emperor nodded. I'll find a way to contact young Master Yi. But you must think of a way. I'm afraid the god-human race will do anything to kill him. If that's the case, we'll be pinned down and young Master Yi is killed. That'll be troublesome. The old man was silent for a moment and said, I'll arrange it. The emperor laughed. I'm relieved to hear that. The old man had lived for so long and his network wasn't something the emperor could compare to. Now the old man was calling for help. A moment later the emperor stood up and left. The old man looked into the distance and said softly, God-human race, you've got guts. He then turned to Jingyu. Pass down my order. Have the elves who are still alive come here at once. Also send word to those who owe me favors. If they still remember that favor, they should come here at once. Jingyu bowed. Understood. With that he turned and left. The old man slowly closed his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. The god-human race. Under the order of the god-human race's grand elder Yanzhu, the 10 divine generals had all returned to the god realm. Apart from that, Yanzhu also mobilized countless mysterious powerful fighters from the god-human race. In a large hall, Yanzhu looked at a god in a black robe. Still no news? The god in the black robe shook his head. That human seems to have evaporated. There's no news of him at all. Yanzhu slowly closed his eyes. A moment later he said, let's go to the human world. The god in the black robe looked at Yanzhu. To the human world? Yanzhu said, we'll wait for him in the human world. As long as he doesn't return, I'll slaughter millions of humans until he shows up. With that he walked out of the hall. Soon, countless powerful fighters from the god-human race headed for the human universe. End of chapter. Chapter 1867. In the fourth space, Zhou Xian was still cultivating. Of course he was cultivating inside Xiaota. He could now control the fourth space. According to God's standard, he could barely be considered a rank 9 expert. Of course there was still a gap between him and a real rank 9 expert. After all, a rank 9 expert was not as simple as just controlling the fourth space. However, if he were to face a rank 9 expert, he could still fight. At least he wouldn't be suppressed by the opposite space and be unable to fight back. Without cultivating, Zhou Xian left Xiaota. A few days had passed. If the god race could not find him, they would definitely attack the humans. He had to return to the human race. If he did not return with Shaoan and Jingji's strength, they would not be able to fight against the god race. Human universe. On this day, countless mysterious experts suddenly descended. They were the god race experts. Their leader was Yanzhu. Somewhere in the starry sky, Shaoan looked at Yanzhu and the others calmly. Beside her was Jingji and God Emperor Lin Shan. Shaoan whispered, is he still alive? Lin Shan smiled. He is definitely alive. Shaoan and Jingji looked at Lin Shan. Lin Shan smiled. The reason why I am so sure is because of these gods. They are still alive. This means that Zhou Xian is still alive. Shaoan whispered, plain dress woman? Lin Shan whispered, yes. Shaoan asked, you think she is stronger than the god race? Lin Shan's eyes flashed with disdain. How can the god race compare to her? What a joke. Not far away, Yanzhu suddenly laughed. My god race cannot compare to a human. Lin Shan looked at Yanzhu and smiled. Let's not talk about this. You are here today to exterminate the human race. It's true that we're no match for your divine clan, but your divine clan can forget about annihilating the entire human race. Yanzhu looked at Lin Shan. My god race created you humans and can also exterminate you. Lin Shan laughed. As long as the god race has the plain dress woman, we will exist forever. Plain dress woman. Yanzhu chuckled. A woman in a plain dress? I hope that she will appear soon and become your savior. As soon as he finished speaking, an expert from the divine clan behind him dashed towards Lin Shan. Lin Shan suddenly shouted, Young Master Yi, if you don't show yourself, the old man will self-destruct. There was no response. Lin Shan's expression froze. Still no response. Lin Shan smiled bitterly. Young Master Yi, the old man still wants to live a few more years. Now it seems that I can only leave in advance. As he spoke, A terrifying aura suddenly surged out of his body. He chose to self-destruct. Facing so many divine race experts, he could only choose to self-detonate and hope to drag one of them down with him. At this moment, the head of the divine race powerhouse that was charging towards Lin Shan suddenly flew off. Blood spurted out from his neck like a fountain, and then it formed a beautiful arc in the air. All the gods were stunned. In the distant horizon, a man slowly walked over. It was Zhou Xian. Seeing Zhou Xian, Yanzhu narrowed his eyes. As for Lin Shan and the other two, they immediately heaved a sigh of relief. If young Master Yi did not appear, they really could only choose to self-destruct. Zhou Xian walked in front of Shaoan and the other two and smiled. Fortunately, we are not late. Jingji, who was at the side, said indifferently, I thought you would wait for us to self-destruct before appearing. Zhou Xian looked at Jingji and smiled. Why would I? As he spoke, he turned to look at Yanzhu. How should I address you? Yanzhu looked at Zhou Xian. Yanzhu, great elder of the divine race. Zhou Xian smiled and said, Elder Yanzhu, this chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. Elder, as far as I know, there is no deep hatred between the humans and the divine race. I feel that it is not impossible for the two races to coexist peacefully. What do you think? Yanzhu smiled and said, in theory it is possible. However, why should my divine race let you rise and become a threat to us? Zhou Xian looked at Yanzhu. As far as I know, the infinite universes do not know that the divine race is a universe, right? Yanzhu looked at Zhou Xian. But your human race was created by my divine race. Zhou Xian nodded. I understand. Since we cannot coexist peacefully, then we will fight. Beside Yanzhu, a divine general suddenly disappeared. Zhou Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Boom. The sword light shattered and the divine general was sent flying. Yanzhu's expression gradually became solemn when he witnessed this scene. This divine general was a level 8 expert. How did Zhou Xian's strength reach such a level in just a few days? The divine general wanted to attack again, but Yanzhu suddenly said, Allow me. The divine general bowed slightly and then retreated to the side. Yanzhu looked at Zhou Xian, opened his palm and then pressed down lightly. In an instant the space around Zhou Xian became illusory. Space-time suppression. Zhou Xian stood there without moving and he allowed the space around him to change. Meanwhile, Yanzhu suddenly flipped his right hand. Bang! The space where Zhou Xian resided was turned upside down, and then Zhou Xian started to fall rapidly. The fourth space-time abyss. With a flip of his hand, Zhou Xian was blasted into the space-time abyss. However, Yanzhu frowned because he noticed that Zhou Xian was actually completely fine. Moreover, the space-time abyss where Zhou Xian resided was gradually becoming illusory. Yanzhu's pupils constricted when he saw this. You've mastered the fourth space-time abyss. At this moment, Zhou Xian had returned to the battlefield. He gazed at Yanzhu and smiled. Take this. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. 1,800 overlapped sword drawing techniques. This slash caused the space before him to shatter. And it didn't just shatter the first space-time abyss, even the third space-time abyss was shattered. A wisp of a solemn expression flashed in Yanzhu's eyes when he witnessed this scene. He opened his right hand and pressed it down lightly. Bang! Zhou Xian's sword light was directly suppressed by the pressure of the fourth space-time abyss. Meanwhile, Zhou Xian suddenly appeared in front of Yanzhu, and a wave of sword light instantly drowned him and Yanzhu. Core sword domain. Bang! In an instant, the space where they resided was directly shattered. Even the fourth space-time abyss was directly shattered. In the fourth space-time abyss, Yanzhu had retreated over 1 kilometer. And there were over 10 sword marks on his body. On the other hand, there was a palm print on Zhou Xian's chest. Both of them had won and lost in this collision. Yanzhu gazed at Zhou Xian with disbelief in his eyes. You've actually mastered the fourth space-time abyss. At this moment, his heart was surging like a tidal wave. Zhou Xian has actually mastered the fourth space-time abyss. How could this be possible? Zhou Xian glanced at the battlefield. Besides Yanzhu, the strongest amongst the other experts of the divine clan was only at the 8th space-time abyss. In other words, only Yanzhu was a threat to him. Thinking of this, Zhou Xian looked at Yanzhu and the next moment he directly disappeared on the spot. In the distance, a trace of hostility flashed in Yanzhu's eyes, and he suddenly pressed down with his right hand. Bang! With a loud explosion, Zhu directly retreated, and in the process of his retreat, another flying sword slashed at him. Zhu blasted out a punch, and the moment this punch blasted out, the entire starry sky trembled violently. Rumble. The flying sword was blasted away. Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword flew back into his hand. This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. He looked at Zhu in the distance, and Zhu slowly clenched his right hand. In an instant, the power of countless stars around him gathered towards him. For a moment the entire starry sky trembled. Just as Xian was about to draw his sword, Zhu suddenly blasted out a punch, and this punch, countless stars gushed out from his fist. This punch gathered the power of thousands of galaxies. Xian held his sword horizontally to block. Invincible sword domain. Rumble. The expansive space that Xian resided in was instantly obliterated, but Xian was completely unharmed. His sword domain had forcefully resisted all the force of Zhu's punch. A wisp of a complicated expression flashed through Zhu's eyes when he witnessed this scene. He knew that he couldn't kill this human before him. Strictly speaking, the current Xian was already a level 9 powerhouse. Coupled with the green profound sword in his hand and those formidable sword techniques, he couldn't do anything to Xian at all. When he thought up to here, his clenched right hand relaxed and he gazed at Xian. In the past we underestimated you, and my god clan paid a heavy price for that. But it won't happen again now. As he spoke, he opened his palm and a divine order appeared in his hand. In the next moment the divine order shot into the sky. Bang! An extremely terrifying aura suddenly swept out from the starry sky. Meanwhile Zhu spoke abruptly, "Greetings, ancestor." Xian was stunned. Damn it. He's calling on our ancestor just like that. He summoned the ancestor just like that. Not only Xian but the other gods were stunned as well. They didn't expect that Grand Elder Zhu would directly summon the ancestor. This ancestor's soul was a trump card of the god clan. He used it just like that. Wasn't he thinking too highly of Xian? Xian's expression was slightly ugly. Damn it. We haven't even fought yet and he's already summoned the ancestor. Who would use such a powerful move right away? He wasn't mentally prepared at all. At this moment an old god appeared in the starry sky. Wuxia, the ancestor of the god clan. He was also the one who created the human race. A superpower who once stunned an era. Wuxia glanced around and he frowned. At this moment, countless gods knelt down in unison. "Greetings, ancestor." Wuxia looked at the gods below. "What's the matter?" As soon as this voice came out, the entire starry sky actually split apart. Seeing this scene, Shaoan and the others' expressions instantly became solemn. This space-time couldn't even withstand his voice? How terrifying was this? Even the woman in the plain dress wasn't this terrifying. The white-haired old man Lin Shan's expression was extremely solemn. This was a super big shot. In the distance, Zhu bowed respectfully and then he said, "Ancestor, the human race has become a great disaster." A great disaster. Wuxia frowned slightly and he turned to look at Xian. He sized up Xian and then he said, "Him." Zhu nodded, "Not just him but the person behind him as well." Wuxia looked at Xian and after a moment he shook his head. "The human race is still like an ant." As he spoke he opened his right hand and then he pressed it down lightly. As he pressed down, an extremely terrifying force swept down. A strength that surpassed level 9. This was a strength that surpassed level 9. And his target wasn't just Xian, it was the entire human universe below. As soon as this palm descended, the entire human universe would collapse. By Xian's side, the pale Jingji said in a trembling voice, "Young Master Yi, they called the ancestor first, you can do the same." End of this chapter. Chapter 1868. Summon the ancestor? Xian smiled bitterly. Summon my ass. Dad would love nothing more than for me to suffer. Call Qing-er? At this moment he could no longer sense Qing-er's aura. Qing-er and my father should be very very far away by now. He could only rely on himself. Xian looked up at Wuxia in the starry sky and smiled. "I'll go first." As soon as he finished speaking he stamped his right foot. The space collapsed and he turned into a sword light that shot up into the sky. A ray of sword light tore through the starry sky. In the starry sky, a ray of sword light slashed against that powerful force. Boom. The sword light shattered, and Yi Xian fell straight into the abyss of spacetime of the fourth layer. As he fell, the abyss of spacetime actually distorted. In the abyss of spacetime, Yi Xian opened his palm. The green profound sword flew to his feet and forcibly held him back. In the starry sky, that mysterious force was still falling straight down. If that force was allowed to fall completely, the entire human universe would be thrown into the abyss of spacetime. One palm to destroy a universe. His opponent could really do it. And the ancestor of the divine human race in front of him was not someone he could contend with now. Was he really going to die? As he thought of this, Yi Xian suddenly laughed. If he was going to die, so be it. He stamped his right foot and turned into a ray of sword light that flew out of the fourth layer of spacetime and slashed at that powerful force. In the starry sky, Missouri Wuxian looked down at Yi Xian with an indifferent expression, as if he was looking at an ant. To him, humans were indeed like ants. In the starry sky, Yi Xian's sword once again slashed against that powerful force. However, he was unable to shake that powerful force. On the contrary, he was once again thrown into the abyss of spacetime. This time his physical body exploded, leaving only his soul. The difference in strength was too great. In the starry sky, Missouri Wuxian looked down at Yi Xian in the abyss of spacetime. A mayfly trying to shake a tree. Yi Xian escaped from the spacetime abyss. He looked at Mo Wuxian and said with a smile, "Again." As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to attack again. Meanwhile, Xiaoan appeared by his side and Xiaoan looked at him and said, "If you attack again, you'll die." Right now, Yi Xian had already suffered very serious injuries. If he attacked again, he would undoubtedly die. The two of them were not on the same level at all. The ancestors of the divine race. Who was this person? That was a supergiant from who knows how many tens of thousands of years ago. Even if it was just a wisp of his soul, it was not something that Yi Xian could fight against. Yi Xian smiled and said, "If I die, then so be it." Xiaoan looked at Yi Xian for a moment before she smiled and said, "I'll go with you." As she spoke, she took the initiative to hold Yi Xian's hand. Meanwhile, Jingji suddenly said, "What are you talking about? Young Master Yi, they call your ancestors, you also call your ancestors." Yi Xian glanced at Jingji and said with a smile, "Miss Jingji, I can't call my ancestors nor can I call anyone." Jingji's face was a little pale. "Are you serious?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Do I look like I'm lying?" After a moment of silence, Jingji said, "Farewell." After saying that, she turned around and disappeared at the end of the horizon. She had already escaped from the spacetime of this universe, so naturally she could escape from this human universe. In fact, she had wanted to leave this human universe for a long time. However, she was still willing to believe in the plain-dressed woman because she was the strongest person she had ever met. However, after seeing the ancestor of the divine race, she was a little shaken. Was this plain-dressed woman really as strong as the ancestor of the divine race? If so, why hadn't she appeared now? There was only one explanation for her not appearing, and that was fear. Therefore she chose to escape. Seeing Jingji escape, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He did not blame Jingji because everyone had the right to make their own choice. However, he was still a little surprised. There were some people who you thought were friends, but in fact they weren't. Some people could only share wealth but not trials and tribulations. Yi Xian turned to look at Xiaoan and smiled. "Actually, you can also leave." Xiaoan shook his head. "I've given you my heart. Where can I go?" Yi Xian was speechless. Lin Shan also smiled. "Looks like it's hard to escape today." Yi Xian looked at Lin Shan and smiled. "Senior Lin Shan, you can also leave." Lin Shan shook his head. "I owe you a favor, and this favor naturally has to be returned." He was able to break through again because of Yi Xian's help to break the seal. Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, in the distant starry sky, the power suddenly boiled, and in an instant, the entire starry sky began to be annihilated bit by bit. This power's target was not just him, Yi Xian, but the entire human universe. And at this moment, this power was destroying the origin of this universe. It couldn't be defended. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Some things, even if one tried his best, might not have a good ending. Of course, he had a clear conscience. He had tried his best. Just then, Yanzhu suddenly said, "It looks like the woman in the plain dress that all of you have been waiting for will not appear." In fact, he had been waiting for the woman in the plain dress and the man in green to appear, and then he would capture them in one fell swoop. But now it seemed that they would not appear. Below, Yi Xian looked up at the terrifying power, and the next moment his soul began to burn. Soul ignition. Although he was no match for them, he would not sit and wait for death. Even if he were to die, he would die in battle. Just as Yi Xian was about to make a move, a shocked voice suddenly came from the distant sky. Wait. Young master, you wait. When he heard this, Yi Xian looked up into the distant sky. The space there suddenly split open, and then a middle-aged man flew out. It was none other than the emperor. The emperor shuddered when he saw that Yi Xian was burning his soul, and he hurriedly appeared in front of Yi Xian and slapped his palm against Yi Xian's shoulder. Bang! The flames on Yi Xian's body vanished. Yi Xian was puzzled. Senior, you are? The emperor hurriedly said, What do you mean by, senior? I'm a few years older than you. If you don't mind, I'll call you Big Brother. Big Brother? Yi Xian was stunned. You're a few years older than me and I'm calling you Big Brother? Is there something wrong with that? Suddenly, Zhu said from afar, Your Majesty? Zhu turned around to look at the Grand Elder and roared with laughter, That's me. Zhu gazed at the emperor. You intend to help this human? The emperor smiled. Is there a problem? Zhu stared at the emperor. Why? The emperor roared with laughter. Because he's my big brother. Big brother? Yi Xian was confused. Senior, do we know each other? The emperor looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Didn't we just get to know each other? Yi Xian was speechless. Just then, the horrifying energy in the starry sky began to disappear bit by bit. Wuxia frowned when he saw this and he turned around to look. There was an old man standing not too far away. It was the governor of Huang City. Zhu's face darkened at the sight of the old man. Why was this old man here as well? And by the looks of it, he was here to help Yi Xian. The governor looked down at Yi Xian and smiled. Young Master Yi. Yi Xian asked in a low voice. Senior, do you know Qing'er? Qing'er. The governor's eyelid twitched. The woman in the plain dress? Yi Xian nodded. She's Qing'er. Desolate City's city lord smiled. Yes. Yi Xian understood now. No wonder he came to help. Wuxia suddenly said, Since when did the fairies side with the humans? The governor looked at Wuxia. Since this moment. Wuxia shook his head and smiled. How laughable. I never thought you fairies would lower yourselves to mingle with humans. How laughable. If your ancestor finds out, I wonder if he'll die from anger. The governor smiled. You don't have to worry about that. Wuxia stared at the governor. Let me see if you can protect this human today. As he spoke, he suddenly flipped his hand and pressed down. Boom. In an instant, the spacetime around the governor collapsed and he fell to the bottom of the spacetime abyss. Endless spacetime pressure pressed down on him, about to crush him. The governor shook his head with a smile. He was slightly worried that the ancestor's strength was even more terrifying than the woman in the plain dress. But now it seemed like he was weaker than the woman in the plain dress. Because the ancestor was still playing with the spacetime Dao. When the woman in the plain dress attacked him, he couldn't feel what power she used. Obviously, the woman in the plain dress's cultivation was higher than the ancestors. Without giving it much thought, the desolate city lord flicked his sleeves. In an instant, the spacetime abyss around him actually became illusory bit by bit. In the next moment, he had already appeared in front of Wuxia, and in the next moment he punched out. The spacetime around Wuxia transformed into a strange vortex, and Wuxia's entire body became distorted. A spacetime vortex. It changed the structure of the fourth layer of spacetime. Yi Xian's face turned solemn. So the fourth layer of spacetime could be played like this. A wisp of ridicule appeared on the corners of Wuxia's mouth as he stood in the depths of the spatial vortex. He flicked his sleeve and the surrounding space instantly returned to normal. Meanwhile, the governor's punch arrived. Wuxia pointed out with a finger, and a ray of white light flashed on the tip of his finger. Bang! An explosion resounded, and the governor retreated a few hundred meters. He was at a slight disadvantage. The city lord of Desolation City laughed and rushed out again. At this moment, Zhu suddenly looked at Yi Xian from below. All gods, listen up. Kill this man. As soon as he finished speaking, he was the first to charge out. On the other hand, all the experts of the god clan by his side charged out as well. All of them had a single target, and it was Yi Xian. Obviously, Zhu wanted to kill Yi Xian. Yi Xian's face darkened. Damn it. The god clan really thinks too highly of me. Not only did they summon their ancestor but they also want to gang up on me. Meanwhile, the emperor glanced at Zhou Xian, and then he hurriedly stood in front of Zhou Xian and said furiously, "If you want to kill my big brother, then you must step over my emperor's corpse." Zhou Xian was speechless. Chapter 1869. Hearing the emperor's words, Zhou Xian shook his head with a smile. At the same time he felt a surge of warmth in his heart. He knew that the emperor was not doing this for Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian did not have that kind of influence. The emperor was doing this for Qing. Zhou Xian could not help but sigh. Was he really a second-generation heir? Right at this moment the space in the surroundings suddenly split open, and then numerous powerful auras surged out. Not long after, dozens of mysterious experts appeared in the surroundings, blocking the divine race's experts. In the starry sky, Yanzhu's face instantly sank when he saw this. So many cultivators were helping Zhou Xian. Yanzhu stared at the emperor in front of Zhou Xian. "Emperor, as far as I know, you are friends with an elder of the god tribe. Why are you doing this?" The emperor smiled. "Justice is in the hearts of men. The god tribe has committed such inhumane acts. Anyone with the slightest sense of justice would not sit by and watch." Yanzhu flew into a rage. Bullsh**. "Emperor, you slaughtered millions of lives for your own selfish reasons. Now you're talking about justice? Where's your dignity?" The emperor's smile turned cold. "I'll make this clear. Young Master Yi is my big brother. If the god tribe wants to touch him, they'll have to do it over my dead body." Zhou Xian was speechless. Yanzhu's face trembled with anger. "Emperor, you're a 9th-rank cultivator after all. How dare you call a human your big brother? Aren't you afraid that everyone in the universe will laugh at you?" The emperor chuckled. "Laugh at me? If they think I'm stupid, then laugh all you want. I don't care." Yanzhu stared at the emperor. "Is it because of that woman in a plain dress?" The emperor laughed and was about to speak when he remembered something. He frowned. "You're stalling for time." As soon as he finished speaking, the starry sky behind Yanzhu suddenly trembled. In the next moment, countless experts of the god clan charged out. The entire tribe had come out. Among them there were a total of 4 Phase 9 powerhouses, and the god clan's patriarch, Mo Yen, was among them. The emperor's face darkened when he saw this. He didn't expect Yanzhu to be so ruthless. This was almost the power of the entire divine human race. Yanzhu looked at the emperor. "What did that plainly dressed woman give you that you're willing to go against the divine clan for a human?" At this moment, Mo Wuxian's voice suddenly came from the distant starry sky. "Don't ask for the reason. Since you've made an enemy of the divine humans, then kill you." Yanzhu still wanted to say something, but Mo Yen suddenly said, "Kill." As soon as he finished speaking, the divine race experts behind him charged towards Zhou Xian's group. Next to Zhou Xian, Emperor Jun said solemnly, "Young Master Yi, be careful." As he spoke, he took a step forward. A powerful force swept out from his body like a volcanic eruption. His Majesty stopped the 2 9th-phase divine humans right away. Meanwhile, Mo Yen charged at Zhou Xian. However, he just made a move when an old man blocked his way. It was Jingyu of the fairy race. Jingyu looked at Mo Yen. In the next moment, countless strange green talismans appeared around Mo Yen. Mo Yen's eyes narrowed slightly. The Tao of talismans. Is the fairy race really going to go against the divine clan for a human? Jingyu nodded. Yes. Mo Yen was slightly puzzled. Why? Jingyu fell silent for a moment before he said, "Our intelligence isn't on the same level. I can't answer you." Mo Yen was furious. "How dare you insult me?" As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly smashed his fist forward. Rumble. The starry sky around Jingyu transformed into a vortex, but it returned to normal in the blink of an eye. At the same time, the strange green talismans formed a space-time cage that trapped Mo Yen within. Mo Yan's face turned solemn. Meanwhile, Grand Elder Yanzhu charged at Zhou Xian. However, he just arrived in front of Zhou Xian when a fairy race old man blocked his way. This fairy race old man was a 9th-rank expert as well. Yanzhu's face instantly sank when he saw the old man. At this moment he felt even more uneasy. The fairy race is doing its best to help Zhou Xian. Why? It's definitely because of that woman in a plain dress. What on earth did the woman in the simple dress use to make the entire elf race give their all to help Zhou Xian? According to his thoughts, he should stop fighting for now and figure this out. Unfortunately, the situation had developed to this point, and it was no longer within his control. After Yanzhu was blocked, Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings. He noticed that the divine race didn't have any more ninth-rank experts. Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. In the distant horizon, the head of a divine general flew into the air. Instant kill. Experts below the ninth rank couldn't withstand a single strike of Yi Xian's. After killing a divine general with a single strike, Yi Xian didn't stop and slashed once more. In next to no time, the heads of some divine race experts flew into the air in succession. It was like slaughtering chickens. Yanzhu's expression changed drastically when he witnessed this scene, and he hurriedly said, "Stop that fellow, Yi Xian." However, at this moment no one in the divine race could stop Yi Xian at all. Right at this moment, a world-shaking explosion suddenly resounded in the distant starry sky, and then an old man retreated repeatedly. It was the city governor of Desolation City who was fighting Wuxian. After he repulsed the city governor with a single strike, Wuxian suddenly gazed at Yi Xian, and then he pointed his finger forward. Yi Xian suddenly raised his head, drew his sword and slashed. Life and death were decided by drawing the sword. Rumble. Along with an expansive sword light shattering, Yi Xian fell directly into the spatial abyss of the 4th level. Wuxian was just about to attack again when the city governor suddenly appeared in front of him. Wuxian's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're courting death." As soon as he finished speaking, he smashed his fist forward. The city governor smashed his fist forward as well. Both of them were very simple punches. As soon as their fists collided, the expansive space they were in was instantly obliterated. The city governor retreated once more. Wuxian gazed at the city governor. "Do you want your spirit race to be annihilated?" The city governor smiled and said, "My spirit race will protect this young master Yi." Wuxian stared at the city governor. "I'm not dead." The city governor fell silent. Wuxian's main body wasn't dead. Wuxian continued. "I'll give you one last chance. If you leave with your spirit race's experts now, then I'll let bygones be bygones out of consideration for your spirit race's ancestors. But if you insist on helping this human, then I guarantee that your spirit race will be slaughtered by my divine race." The city governor smiled and said, "My spirit race will protect this young master Yi." Wuxian gazed at the city governor and then he shook his head. "Your actions are slightly difficult for me to understand." The city governor laughed. "There's no need to understand. Wuxian, if you have the ability, then annihilate my spirit race today. Otherwise my spirit race will live and die with young Master Yi." Wuxian nodded. "I'll fulfill your wish." As soon as he finished speaking, his body began to slowly turn illusory. Seeing this, the city governor frowned. Was he going to disappear? Very quickly he seemed to have thought of something. His pupils constricted. Wuxian was going to come with his main body. On the other side, Yanzhu and the others also noticed this. When Yanzhu realized that Wuxian was going to come with his main body, he heaved a sigh of relief. Now that things had developed to such a drastic change, only Wuxian's main body could completely deal with Yi Xian and the others. Yen and the others stopped as well. They were all 9th stage experts. In a short period of time no one could kill the other. Now they only needed to wait for their ancestor's main body to come. Then everything would be over. The city governor's face darkened. He hadn't expected that the situation would develop to such an extent. Not only had the god race summoned their ancestor as soon as they arrived, Wuxian was even going to come with his main body. They were determined to annihilate Yi Xian. The emperor walked over to the city governor's side and spoke in a low voice. "How long will it take for them to get here?" The city governor shook his head. "I don't know. But it shouldn't be too long." The emperor asked. "What should we do?" The city governor shook his head again. "I don't know." This ancestor of the god race was able to suppress him with just a strand of his soul. So if the ancestor's main body arrived, then he would definitely be unable to defeat the ancestor. Because it was very likely that the ancestor was a 10th stage expert. When he thought up to here, the city governor's expression grew even more solemn. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Seniors." The emperor and the city governor gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian cupped his fists and said, "I, Yi Xian, will forever remember your help just now." The emperor smiled. "It's a small matter." Yi Xian shook his head. "To me it's a matter of life and death." Seniors, please go back. The matter between me and the divine human race will be settled by us. He didn't take their help for granted. The city governor hesitated for a moment and said, My young friend, if Mo Wuxian's main body arrives, then we really won't be able to stop him. May I know if you can contact that senior in a plain dress? Xian shook his head. No. The city governor sighed in his heart. Meanwhile, the emperor spoke abruptly, She won't stand by idly. The city governor fell silent. At this moment he was slightly hesitant. Should I make a bigger bet? Now Xian owed him a favor. But if he left with the soul race right now, then it wouldn't be a huge favor, and the benefits he would obtain in the future would definitely be limited. On the other hand, if he stayed behind to face Mo Wuxian with Xian, then he would owe him a huge favor. Of course, the risk was huge as well. If the woman in a plain dress really didn't show up, then all of them would really die. Moreover, even if the woman in a plain dress did show up, if she wasn't a match for Mo Wuxian, then all of them would be dead. Should I make a bet? At this moment, the city governor was extremely conflicted. Suddenly, the emperor smiled and said, I'll stay. The city governor gazed at the emperor. The emperor fell silent for a moment before he said, Old geezer, how do you feel when you face Mo Wuxian? The city governor replied, Formidable. The emperor asked, What about when you face senior in a plain dress? The city governor's face turned slightly unsightly. Terror. He was terrified when he faced the woman in a plain dress. At this point, the city governor suddenly smiled and said, I, Jingyan, have lived for 8 million years. If I can't improve, then what's the point of living for another million years? As he spoke, he gazed at Xian and roared with laughter. My young friend, the soul race will live or die with you today. If we live, then please put in a good word for us in the future and ask her to guide us. The old man and the soul race will be eternally grateful. If we die, then everything will be over. He made the bet. Not only was he risking his life, but he was also risking the lives of his entire race. Chapter 1870. The emperor was shocked. He didn't expect the old man to bet so much that he even brought the entire fairy race with him. This was a bit too much. Of course, wasn't the emperor a bit too much? He wasn't confident that he would win, but he didn't regret it. What he felt when facing the woman was fear that came from the depths of his heart. His instincts told him to trust the woman. At the side, Xian had a complicated look on his face. He knew that the reason why these two dared to bet so much was because of Qing'er. Xian looked into space. To be honest, with a sister like her, was there really a need for him to fight? Was there? For the first time he felt that he might as well just be a second-generation heir. He didn't want to fight anymore. Just then the entire galaxy was stirred. The true gods in the distance were excited at the sight of this. He's here. Their ancestor is here. Everyone looked into space. In the faraway galaxy, the entire galaxy was boiling like boiling water. Time and space were distorted. The person hadn't arrived, but the force was there. Just the force alone was enough to make the universe unbearable. If the deity himself came, wouldn't the universe collapse? Looking at the seething starry sky in the distance, Xian also looked extremely serious. So powerful. This was definitely beyond the 9th rank. At this moment, Small Tower suddenly sighed softly. Xian was confused. What are you sighing about? Xiaota said, Young master, I'm starting to feel sorry for you. Xian frowned. Sorry for what? Xiaota said in a low voice. I realize that no matter how hard you work, there will always be a super enemy who is many times stronger than you. And this enemy is definitely someone you can't beat. Xian, Xiaota continued, I suddenly feel that something is wrong with master's methods. He wants to train you, but he hasn't considered that your enemy is not normal. I've said before that master killed his way to the top, but I've neglected one problem. That was, he could kill his enemies. But young lord, you can't. Many times, even if you activate your bloodline and ignite your soul, you still can't kill your enemies. At this point it paused for a moment and said, Young master, you're really tragic. Xian was speechless. Xiaota continued, Indeed, master rarely relies on others. However, other than Sister Tianming, there are very few enemies that are much stronger than him. But you, young master, are different. Your enemies are often many times stronger than you. Speaking of which, young lord, don't you have any opinion on this? Xian said indifferently, What do you think I would think? Xiaota said, Tell master. Get him to help. Yi Xian shook his head. I used to think it was unfair, but now I don't think so anymore. Xiao Ta was puzzled. Why? Yi Xian smiled and said, in this world there are far too many people who encounter injustice. Who are they going to complain to? If there's anyone to blame, then blame it on me, Yi Xian, for not being strong enough. And one more thing, father has given me a lot. Without him Xiao Ta said, without him you still have sister Tianming. Yi Xian was speechless. This small pagoda was trying to rebel against his father. At this moment the entire universe suddenly became illusory. The universe was about to shatter. Seeing this, the Lord of Desolation City's face turned extremely solemn. The smile on the emperor's face disappeared without a trace. Mo Wuxian, the ancestor of the divine humans, was here. Mo Wuxian was not the first true god of the divine humans, but the rise of the divine humans was due to him. Therefore, the divine humans respected him as their ancestor because he was the one who brought the divine humans to glory. At this moment, a ray of white light suddenly fell into the starry sky. The white light dissipated and a middle-aged man appeared before everyone's eyes. Countless gods fell to their knees. Greetings, ancestor. Ancestor. It was the ancestor of the divine humans, Mo Wuxian. And it was his real body that had come. His real body. The moment he saw Mo Wuxian, the Lord of Desolation City slowly closed his eyes. A 10th rank expert. Mo Wuxian had surpassed the 9th rank. Mo Wuxian's gaze descended onto the Lord of Desolation City, and he slowly pressed his right hand down. The Lord of Desolation City opened his eyes, and a wisp of ferocity flashed through them as he shot into the sky. Bang! Everywhere the Lord of Desolation City passed, space and time distorted. Mo Wuxian's right hand suddenly descended. Bang! The Lord of Desolation City fell directly into the 4th layer of the spatial abyss, and his body was completely shattered. He was instantly killed. The countenances of all the experts from the demon race had turned pale when they witnessed this scene. We're finished. That was the only thought in their minds. On the other side, the true gods of the divine race became excited. The ancestor is invincible. The ancestor is invincible. For a time, countless experts of the true god race roared madly. Their voices were so loud that it was like thunder, and it spread through tens of thousands of galaxies. At this moment all the experts in the boundless universe looked over. A 10th rank expert? All the experts were horrified. In an unknown galaxy, a swordsman suddenly stopped in front of a white starry hole. The swordsman wore a long white robe and he held a sword in his hand. The swordsman turned around and frowned. Who is calling himself invincible? He was a little displeased. Last time he met someone who called himself invincible, but what happened? That person was as weak as an ant and he made a wasted trip. Now someone called himself invincible and he made such a big fuss. After a moment of silence, the swordsman looked at the white starry hole. Wait a moment. With that he turned and disappeared. Not just anyone could call himself invincible. It was fine if he didn't hear it. But if he heard it, he had to see it. In another galaxy, Mo Wuxian looked at the Lord of Desolation City who no longer had a body. I gave you a chance but you didn't cherish it. Now let me ask you, do you regret it? Regret? The Lord of Desolation City laughed. What's there to regret? Isn't it just a life? Just come and take it. Mo Wuxian nodded slightly. You have some backbone, I'll grant you your wish. With that his right hand slowly pressed down. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly appeared above the Lord of Desolation City. He looked straight at Mo Wuxian and without a word he shot up into the sky. Mo Wuxian was expressionless. And with that his right hand pressed down. Boom. The sword light shattered and Yi Xian fell from the sky. Like the Lord of Desolation City he fell into the space-time abyss again. If not for the green profound sword, the space-time abyss would have swallowed his soul. Inside the space-time abyss, Yi Xian's soul became illusory. He was no match for him. Not to mention that he wasn't a real 9th rank expert yet. Even if he was, he wouldn't be a match for Mo Wuxian. The gap between them was too huge. Mo Wuxian looked down at Yi Xian. I never imagined that the human race would actually develop to such a level. I really hadn't expected this. Yi Xian gazed at Mo Wuxian and smiled. There are many more that you can't imagine. Mo Wuxian stared at Yi Xian. Just now, my clansman told me that there are 2 formidable humans behind you. Since that's the case, why don't you let them meet you? Xian thought for a moment and then he said, I can't contact them. But when he spoke up to hear, he gazed at Wuxian. Since you're so strong, why don't you contact them yourself? Wuxian chuckled. Contact them myself. Xian nodded. Since you're so strong, you'll definitely be able to contact them. As he spoke, he opened his palm and the green profound sword flew over to Wuxian. This is Qing'er's sword. I think that with your extraordinary ability, you should be able to contact her through this sword. Wuxian was about to speak when Grand Elder Yanzhu spoke abruptly. Ancestor, I'm afraid it's a trap. Wuxian glanced at Grand Elder Yanzhu. All of you remember that when your strength reaches a certain level, you can disregard all schemes and plots. Yanzhu fell silent. There was nothing wrong with that. Once one's strength reached a certain level, would one still have to fear schemes and plots? Wuxian gazed at the green profound sword and he instantly frowned when he saw it. In the next moment he opened his right palm and the sword fell into his grasp. As he looked at it, his brows furrowed. Who forged this sword? Xian gazed at Wuxian. You can use this sword to find the person who forged it. Wuxian gazed at Xian and smiled. Ignorant human, this sword is extraordinary indeed. However, that's all there is to it. You actually foolishly think that the person who forged it can save you. That's not just laughable, it's pitiful. As he spoke, the sword in his right hand shook slightly. Bang! The sword shook violently and then a sword howl shot into the sky. At the same time, a ray of white light shot into the depths of the starry sky. He directly utilized the sword to open up a spatial passageway. To search for the woman in a plain dress. He traversed countless spaces with a single thought. Everyone in the surroundings was looking at Wuxian. A rank 10 expert. That's a rank 10 expert. Could that woman in a plain dress compare to him? In the sky, Missouri Wuxian suddenly gazed at Xian and he grinned. Human, I'll let you see what strength is. You know nothing about strength. If the person behind you appears later, then they'll fall into despair. Because I'm an invincible existence in this boundless universe. Invincible in the truest sense of the word. Invincible. Right at this moment, a voice suddenly resounded from the distant horizon. Everyone turned around and saw a swordsman in a cloud-white robe walking over slowly from afar. Xian was stunned when he saw the person who'd arrived. Damn it! What's this big brother doing here? Wuxian gazed at the swordsman, and he instantly frowned when he saw the swordsman. I can't see through him. He's actually unable to see through this human. The swordsman glanced at Xian and then he grinned. I never expected that we'd meet again. Xian hurriedly said, Big brother, what are you doing here? The swordsman smiled. I heard someone say he's invincible, so I'm here. Xian was about to speak when Xiao Ta suddenly said, Big sister Tianming often says she's invincible as well. Why don't you go look for her? The swordsman was slightly stunned, and then he gazed at Xian. Do you still want this pagoda? If you don't, I can destroy it for you. A single strike of my sword is enough. Xian was speechless. Xiao Ta was speechless. Chapter 1871. Xian was speechless. Ever since Qing'er had transformed Xiao Ta, he'd become extraordinarily arrogant. Suddenly Wuxian said, Who are you? Swordsman turned around to gaze at Wuxian and grinned. Are you talking about being invincible? Wuxian gazed at Swordsman. Is there a problem? Swordsman nodded. Yes. Wuxian's eyes narrowed slightly. Swordsman, you really aren't simple. However you... Swordsman suddenly interrupted Wuxian. There's no need to talk about it. Take this. As soon as he finished speaking, he drew his sword and slashed. Simple and direct. Wuxian's pupils constricted when he saw this attack. At this moment he sensed danger. How can this human's brain be so strong? This thought flashed through his mind, but he didn't have the time to think about it. He took a step forward and smashed his fist down. At the instant his fist struck out, the first to fourth layers of space overlapped, and then they formed an extremely terrifying spatial pressure. However, as soon as Swordsman's sword slashed down, the formidable spatial pressure suddenly collapsed. Everyone watched as a sword pierced directly into the center of Wuxian's forehead. Bang! Wuxian's body instantly collapsed into pieces, and his soul was locked down tightly by a sword. He lost. At this moment the minds of everyone here had gone blank. Ancestor Mo Wuxian was killed by a sword just like that? The emperor who stood by Yi Xian's side gulped and then he said, "Big brother, this swordsman is your big brother?" Yi Xian nodded. The emperor immediately said, "If he's your big brother then he's my big brother." Yi Xian was speechless. Swordsman glanced at Mo Wuxian who was slightly dazed, and then he shook his head while a trace of disappointment flashed through his eyes. "Don't say that you're invincible in your next life." Mo Wuxian gazed at Swordsman with eyes filled with disbelief. How could a human be so strong? The swordsman did not answer Mo Wuxian. He turned to look at Yi Xian. "Kid, I have to go." Yi Xian quickly asked, "Big brother, where are you going?" Swordsman smiled and said, "Go wherever the danger is." Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment Mo Wuxian suddenly roared, "You are all living beings that I created, how can you be stronger than me? This is impossible." Swordsman glanced at Mo Wuxian a little puzzled. "Isn't being defeated a good thing? Do you know how much I want to be defeated? This feeling of being invincible is really lonely, do you understand?" Mo Wuxian, everyone. Swordsman looked at Yi Xian. "Kid, don't be afraid of failure. Every time you fail it means that you can improve." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then said, "Losing once or twice is a good thing, but being defeated frequently isn't a good thing." Swordsman smiled and said, "Indeed. But this feeling of being invincible is really lonely." Yi Xian said, "Actually, I really want to experience this kind of loneliness." Swordsman was stunned and then he smiled and said, "Then you have to work hard." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Big brother, can you help me with a small thing?" Swordsman nodded. "Speak." Yi Xian glanced at the Lord and Emperor of Barren City in the distance. "Big brother, these two friends of mine have reached their limits. I wonder if you can give them some guidance?" Hearing this, the Lord and Emperor of Barren City were instantly excited. Damn it! They didn't sell their lives for nothing. Swordsman glanced at them and then he shook his head. "I can't give them any guidance." Yi Xian was a little confused. "Why not?" Swordsman looked at the sword in his hand. "I only train in the way of the sword, nothing else. Please continue to the next page." Yi Xian frowned. "Only train in the way of the sword?" Swordsman nodded. "That's right." Yi Xian said in a low voice. "Big brother, do you know about the fifth dimension?" Swordsman shook his head. "I don't." Yi Xian was dumbfounded. He didn't know. Yi Xian was shocked. "Big brother, you don't know anything else apart from the way of the sword?" Swordsman smiled. "That's right." Yi Xian was silent. Swordsman. This big brother was a pure swordsman. A man who had trained swordsmen to the extreme. Hearing Swordsman's words, the governor and the emperor were a little disappointed. This swordsman in front of them was not just an ordinary person. Unfortunately, he only trained in the way of the sword and they weren't swordsmen. In other words, he couldn't give them any guidance. At this time Swordsman said, "As far as I know, Tianming seems to be good at this. You can ask her to guide your friends in the future." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "That's the only way." Swordsman nodded. "They're still waiting for me. I have to go." Yi Xian quickly asked, "Qinger and Papa?" Swordsman smiled. "Yes." Yi Xian frowned. "You've formed a group?" Swordsman said, "Not really. We're just walking together for a while and we'll talk about it. You know what I mean." Yi Xian's expression became solemn. "You won't get into a fight, right?" Swordsman thought for a moment and said, "I don't think so. Because we can't kill each other for now." Yi Xian instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. Swordsman was about to speak when Mo Wuxian suddenly said fiercely, "Human." Swordsman looked at Mo Wuxian. Mo Wuxian was slightly mad. "Do you think you'll win for sure?" Swordsman was quite happy. "What other trump cards do you have? Come on, hurry up and use them." Mo Wuxian opened his right hand. There was a small command token in his hand, and it rose slowly before transforming into a flame that vanished into the depths of the starry sky. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. "Don't tell me you're going to summon your ancestor as well?" Mo Wuxian glanced coldly at Yi Xian. "Ignorant ant." Swordsman suddenly drew his sword. Flap. A ray of sword light swept across Mo Wuxian's soul. Mo Wuxian's entire soul trembled violently before it became illusory. Swordsman gazed at Mo Wuxian. "Be more polite to my little brother." Mo Wuxian was speechless. Right at this moment, the distant depths of the starry sky suddenly trembled violently, and then an enormous starship appeared above them. A group of extremely strange living beings stood on the starship. These living beings seemed like skeletons and they were tall and huge. Every single one of them emanated strange runes that flowed through their bodies. It was an extremely strange sight. Xian frowned slightly. What living beings are they? Right at this moment, the desolate city lord suddenly exclaimed in shock. They're otherworldly demons. Otherworldly demons. The emperor's expression instantly changed drastically when he heard this. Xian gazed at the two of them. What race are these otherworldly demons? The desolate city lord's face was slightly pale. Little friend, you might not know this, but the otherworldly demons were once living beings of this boundless universe. They were a level 3 civilization, but they surpassed the limits of their race in the end and became a level 4 civilization. After that, they left this boundless universe. Level 4 civilization. Xian fell silent. He knew that the god race was a level 3 civilization, and in this boundless universe, there were no level 4 civilizations. In the distance, Wuxia bowed respectfully to the group of otherworldly demons, and then he began to mumble something. No one understood him, not even the god race. However, the more Wuxia spoke, the more agitated he became. Not only that, he even pointed at swordsmen from time to time. At this moment, that starship. This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. One of the otherworldly demons on the starship looked at swordsman. He looked at swordsman for a moment and then he bowed slightly. Then he opened his palm and a ball of light slowly floated out from his palm. Finally, it landed in front of swordsman. At the same time, that otherworldly demon placed his right hand on his chest and bowed respectfully again. Seeing this scene, everyone present was dumbfounded. Wuxia himself was dumbfounded. At this moment, his entire soul was trembling. The others might not understand the meaning of these otherworldly demons, but he did. The otherworldly demons only respected powerful beings, and the otherworldly demons gave swordsmen the ball of light as a gift to express their goodwill. Why would the otherworldly demons do this? There was only one explanation, and that was that swordsmen made these otherworldly demons feel threatened. It's over. This was the thought in Wuxia's mind. Swordsman glanced at the ball of light in front of him and he frowned. He looked at the leading otherworldly demon. Are we not going to fight? The leading otherworldly demon immediately shook his head. He bowed respectfully again and then he took out another ball of light. That ball of light slowly floated in front of swordsman. Beside Xian, the emperor said softly, as expected of a race from a higher civilization, their intelligence is really high. At this moment Xian walked in front of swordsman. He glanced at the two balls of light and then said, Big brother, do you want them? Swordsman looked at Xian. Do you? Xian's face reddened but he quickly recovered. He took the two balls of light in his hand. I'm just a little curious. Swordsman laughed. If you like them, I'll give them to you. Xian quickly said, How can I accept them? Even so, he had already put the two balls of light away. The crowd was speechless. After putting away the balls of light, Xian walked to the front of the starship. At this moment, the otherworldly demons were looking at Xian. Xian pointed at swordsman below. Pi big brother. The leading otherworldly demon hesitated for a moment, then took out another ball of light and handed it to Xian. At the same time, a voice sounded in Xian's mind. Sir, please tell your big brother that the otherworldly demon race has no intention of making an enemy out of him. Xian looked at the otherworldly demon. Is my big brother very strong? The leading otherworldly demon glanced at Xian. Can't you feel it? Xian was silent for a moment then asked, How strong is he? The otherworldly demon was silent for a moment, then said, I can't tell. Can't tell. Xian was silent for a moment then said, My big brother has no intention of making an enemy out of the otherworldly demon race. Not only that, he is willing to befriend the otherworldly demon race. Hearing this, the leading otherworldly demon was elated. Really? Xian nodded. He said that the otherworldly demon race is a very powerful race and he wants me to befriend you, but I don't know if you are sincere. The otherworldly demon glanced at swordsman, then looked at Xian. Damn it. This human is trying to fool me. The otherworldly demon was silent for a moment, then he took out a token and handed it to Xian. Human sir, this is the otherworldly spirit token. With this token you can come to the otherworldly demon race at any time. Yi Xian suddenly shook his head. Oh no. I don't want it. If you want to give it to me, give it to my big brother. The otherworldly demon's expression froze. Giving this human a otherworldly spirit token was actually enough. But if he gave it to swordsman, a otherworldly spirit token? How could he take out such a trashy thing? He hesitated for a moment, then said, Sir, please wait a moment, I will ask the patriarch. If he gave it to swordsman, a otherworldly spirit token was definitely not enough, and he could not give him anything better. He had to ask the patriarch. Yi Xian smiled and said, It's fine, we can wait a moment. The otherworldly demon. End of this chapter. Chapter 1872. The otherworldly demon looked at Yi Xian with a strange expression. This human. At this moment, swordsman walked to Yi Xian's side and smiled. With your status, why do you need to make friends with the otherworldly demons? Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Father doesn't care about me, I can only rely on my own efforts to survive. The green-robed man. Swordsman thought for a moment, then looked at the otherworldly demon. Where is the otherworldly demon tribe? The otherworldly demon's expression changed drastically. He quickly said, Your Excellency, the otherworldly demon tribe has no intention of becoming enemies with Your Excellency. This time it is purely a misunderstanding. As soon as his voice fell, the space in front of him suddenly trembled, and the next moment an otherworldly demon walked out. This otherworldly demon was wearing a golden yellow robe and a golden crown on his head. Seeing this person, all the otherworldly demons in the field hurriedly bowed respectfully. The otherworldly demon king. The otherworldly demon king's gaze fell on swordsman. Swordsman did not waste any time and raised his sword. The otherworldly demon king's pupils suddenly shrank, and his right hand pressed forward lightly. Boom. In an instant, endless space-time pressure suddenly swept over. The space-time pressure of the fifth layer. Yi Xian's expression was a little grave. At first he thought that Wuxia had mastered the fifth layer, but in fact that was not the case. Wuxia had only combined the first and fourth layers. However, this was still terrifying. But the other party had not mastered the fifth layer. And the otherworldly demon king before him had truly mastered the fifth layer. Countless overlapping space-time forces crushed towards swordsman's sword light. At this moment the entire human universe trembled. However, when the space-time pressure touched swordsman's sword light, boom, all the space-time pressure disappeared, and at the same time, a sword was pressed against the otherworldly demon king's forehead. Defeated. On the other side, Wuxia, who hadn't died yet, started trembling when he saw this scene. In front of swordsman, the otherworldly demon king was silent for a moment, then bowed slightly. I lost. Keeping his sword, swordsman looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Little guy, they are still waiting for me. See you later. Saying this, he turned and left, disappearing in the distant Star River Pure Land in the blink of an eye. Gone. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. This big brother, he came fast and left fast. The otherworldly demon king suddenly walked up to Yi Xian. He opened his palm, and a golden ring slowly floated in front of Yi Xian. Spirit ring. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. The otherworldly demon king smiled. The otherworldly demon king chuckled softly. Spirit ring. Seeing this ring is equivalent to seeing me. All otherworldly demons who see this ring have to obey my commands unconditionally. Ring. Xian said, Demon king of. Our otherworldly demonic tribe is willing to be on good terms with mankind for all eternity. Yi Xian kept the spirit ring and smiled. The human race is also willing to be friends with the otherworldly demon race. The otherworldly demon king nodded, then turned to Wuxia. Kill. As soon as he finished his words, the otherworldly demons behind him charged at the God Clan experts. Before the divine race masters could react, their bodies were destroyed bit by bit. They were powerless to fight back. This was civilization suppression. Wuxia suddenly laughed. Ridiculous, really ridiculous. I never thought that the 800 trillion years of history of the divine race would be destroyed by the humans I created. Yanzhu suddenly said with a trembling voice, Young Master Yi, please show mercy. Yi Xian, this chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. Looking at Yanzhu hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, Yi Xian suddenly asked, Will you let the humans go? Yanzhu's expression froze. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the cyan profound sword in his hand suddenly sank into Wuxia's forehead. Boom. Wu Xian's soul was directly absorbed by the Xian Profound Sword. And at the same time, the Xian Profound Sword flew into the group of divine race masters. With the help of the otherworldly demons in a few short breaths, Xian's Xian Profound Sword had absorbed all the souls of the divine race masters. Xiao Han shouted excitedly, "Young master, it's a great tonic. A great tonic." Xian smiled. "I should be able to break through, right?" Xiao Han hurriedly said, "Yes." Xian nodded. At this time the otherworldly demon king suddenly looked at the Xian Profound Sword. He hesitated for a moment then said, "Can I have a look at it?" Xian nodded, and with a thought the Xian Profound Sword flew in front of the otherworldly demon king. The otherworldly demon king looked at the Xian Profound Sword and seemed to discover something. His eyes suddenly narrowed. "This?" Xian was a little curious. "Did you discover something?" The otherworldly demon king looked at Xian. "Was this sword forged by that senior just now?" Xian shook his head. The otherworldly demon king was taken aback then said, "Someone else." Xian nodded. The otherworldly demon king looked deeply at Xian, then passed the Xian Profound Sword to Xian. "Young friend, my otherworldly demon race will be holding a divine item exhibition in 3 days. I would like to invite you to participate." Xian frowned. "Divine item exhibition?" The otherworldly demon king nodded. "There will be many divine items appearing at that time. Everyone can exchange and discuss with each other and also trade with each other." Xian was a little hesitant. Given his current strength, if the Xian Profound Sword were to be targeted by others, he would be in deep trouble. As if sensing Xian's worries, the otherworldly demon king said, "Young friend, there's no need to worry about anything else. My otherworldly demon race will be by your side the entire time. Of course, I hope that you can represent our otherworldly demon race to participate in the exhibition." Hearing those words, Xian immediately understood. The other party's target was the Xian Profound Sword. The otherworldly demon king continued, "There will be many powerful races appearing at the exhibition. Young friend, you can participate in it." Hearing those words, Xian smiled. "All right." The otherworldly demon king nodded. "Young friend, if you have no other matters to attend to, you can follow me to the otherworldly demon race." Xian said with a deep voice, "I still have some matters that I need to attend to this." The otherworldly demon king smiled. "It's fine." As he spoke, he took out a token and passed it over to Xian. "This is the spatial teleportation token. Young friend, activate it and you will be able to reach our otherworldly demon race within 2 hours." Xian kept the spatial teleportation token and said with a smile, "That's great." The otherworldly demon king nodded. "I'll be waiting for you at the otherworldly demon race." As he spoke, he prepared to lead the otherworldly demons away. At this moment, Xian hurriedly said, "Wait a moment, I have a presumptuous request." The otherworldly demon king smiled. "Speak." Xian glanced at the desolate city lord and Emperor Jun in the distance. "Senior, my 2 friends have already reached their limits. May I ask if Senior can guide them a little so that they can break through their limits?" Hearing those words, the desolate city lord and Emperor Jun were moved. This young master Yi hasn't forgotten about them. Their lives were truly worth it. The otherworldly demon king glanced at the desolate city lord and Emperor Jun before saying, "This is a small matter. If the 2 of you are willing, you can follow me to the otherworldly demon race." The desolate city lord hurriedly said, "Yes. That's a level 4 starfield." Emperor Jun, if this chapter is not complete, please flip the page. The desolate city lord also hurriedly said, "Yes. I'm willing." The otherworldly demon king nodded and then he waved his right hand lightly. 2 teleportation formations suddenly appeared beneath their feet. Meanwhile, he seemed to have thought of something and he gazed at Xiaoan. He thought for a moment, and then he flicked his finger, causing a ball of light to appear in front of Xiao, and Xiaoan glanced at the otherworldly demon king. "What's this?" The otherworldly demon king said, "It's a legacy ball. This ball contains the complete legacy of a rank 10 expert. You can attain rank 10 once you absorb it." Rank 10. Xiao An's expression changed when she heard this. However, she didn't take it and she turned around to look at Xian instead. Xian smiled. "Senior, it's a gesture of kindness. Please accept it." Xiaoan nodded and put the ball of light away. The otherworldly demon king gazed at Xian. "Farewell." As he spoke, he and the otherworldly demons by his side started to fade. Right at this moment, a woman suddenly appeared here. It was none other than Jingji. Jingji gazed at Yi Xian with a pleading gaze. She knew that as long as Yi Xian spoke, her fate would change. Yi Xian looked at Jingji and said with a smile, "Miss Jingji, what can I do for you?" Jingji said in a deep voice, "Young Master Yi, for the sake of our previous relationship, Yi Xian walked up to Jingji and smiled, "We're not familiar." After saying this, he turned around and left with Xiao. Jingji's expression froze. In the distance, the otherworldly demon king glanced at Jingji before withdrawing his gaze. In the next moment, he and the otherworldly demons disappeared. Jingji was silent. She knew that she would never have the chance to reach rank 9 or above in this lifetime. Cultivate by herself? The divine race had a deep foundation, but how many rank 9 experts did they have? There were only a few. If Jingji didn't have anyone to help her, she wouldn't even be able to reach rank 6 or 7, let alone rank 9. However, Xiaoan had reached the heavens in a single step. She had truly reached the heavens in a single step. Thinking of this, Jingji slowly closed her eyes. At this moment she recalled her father's words. "You're not as good as Xiaoan." She was not convinced, so she joined forces with outsiders to pull Xiaoan down. Now it was proven that she was indeed not as good as Xiaoan. From now on, there would be a gap between her and Xiaoan that she would never be able to cross. In some unknown starry sky, the plain-dressed woman and the green-robed man slowly walked into the distance. Not far in front of the two of them, there was a city wall that spanned across the starry sky. Behind the city wall was a tall tower. The green-robed man glanced behind him and frowned. "What is Brother Xiao doing? Why isn't he here yet?" At this moment, the space in front of the two of them suddenly trembled. In the next moment, a shadow appeared in front of the two of them. The green-robed man smiled slightly. "I'm just passing by." The shadow glanced at the two of them and narrowed his eyes. "This road is blocked. Leave quickly or you'll have to bear the consequences." The plain-dressed woman suddenly took out a portrait. "This is my brother." The green-robed man. The shadow glanced at the portrait in the plain-dressed woman's hand, and then he frowned slightly and was slightly displeased. "What's the relationship between your brother and me? You're ridiculous." The plain-dressed woman pointed with her fingers. The shadow's physical body collapsed and only his soul was left. The shadow's eyes were wide open and they were filled with terror. "Did I say something wrong? P.S. I recommend a friend's book. Cultivation begins with kowtowing. Those who like Xianxia should read it. It's already 1,000,000 words and can be slaughtered." End of this chapter. Chapter 1873. The figure was completely dumbfounded. What did he say? His body was gone. The green-robed man glanced at the plain-dressed woman and was about to speak. Suddenly, an angry roar resounded from within the city wall. "How dare you!" As the voice fell, a terrifying pressure suddenly swept out from within the city wall. In an instant, the space around the plain-dressed woman became illusory. The woman in the plain dress stared at a spot not far away from her with an expressionless face. She didn't make a move and allowed that powerful force to slam into her body. In an instant, that powerful force disappeared without a trace. It was like a pebble falling into the sea, disappearing without a trace. Following a shocked voice, an afterimage appeared in front of the plain-dressed woman and the green-robed man. The afterimage gradually solidified. Its appearance was not particularly different from that of a human, but its skin was dark purple and so were its eyes. The green-robed man sized up the creature in front of him. "What race are you from?" The creature glanced at the green-robed man and said, "The Illusion Tribe." The green-robed man nodded slightly. "Leave." The man from the Illusion Tribe cupped his fists. "You are?" The green-robed man smiled. "We are not interested in the Illusion Tribe." At this moment, the plain-dressed woman suddenly opened her palm. In the next moment, a sword flew out from her hand and in an instant, the sword was pressed against the forehead of the man from the Illusion Tribe. The expression of the man from the Illusion Tribe froze. The plain-dressed woman took out a portrait of Yi Xian. "My brother. Do you understand?" The green-robed man felt a headache coming on. The man from the Illusion Tribe hurriedly said, "Yes." He was not stupid. How could he not understand? The plain-dressed woman put away her sword and waved her sleeves. In an instant, the space around the man from the Illusion Tribe fluctuated like waves. The man from the Illusion Tribe's eyes were filled with shock. The plain-dressed woman suddenly walked to the right. The green-robed man looked at the plain-dressed woman. "Where are you going?" The plain-dressed woman did not answer and disappeared into the distance. At this moment, the man from the illusion tribe looked in the direction where the plain-dressed woman had left and said with a trembling voice, "Thank you for your guidance." The green-robed man was about to speak when he suddenly turned around. Not far away, a ray of sword light appeared. Then a swordsman walked over. Swordsman glanced at the green-robed man's side. "Where's Tianming?" The green-robed man shrugged. "Let's go." Swordsman frowned. "Gone?" The green-robed man nodded. "Forget about her. Let's go." With that he rode his sword and disappeared into the distance. Swordsman pondered for a moment before disappearing into the distance as well. The man from the illusion race wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. What kind of creatures were these three? It was actually so terrifying. As if he'd thought of something, he opened up his palm, and the portrait left behind by the woman in a simple dress appeared before him. After looking at the portrait for a long time, he suddenly said, "Make 100,000 copies of this portrait. I want every single clansman to have a copy. If you encounter this person, notify me immediately." As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at the space in front of him, and his expression grew even more solemn. In that instant just now, the woman in a plain dress had directly sent him into the 7th layer of space. Although it was only for a moment, he had already experienced the mysteries of the 7th layer of spacetime. To him this was undoubtedly the opening of a new door. Azure Province, inside the palace. Yi Xian sat on the dragon throne with Tuoba Yen in his arms. Tuoba Yen nestled in Yi Xian's arms and asked softly, "Are you all right now?" Yi Xian nodded. "The crisis of humanity has been resolved. Now I'm going to explore the outside world." Tuoba Yen looked up at Yi Xian. "The outside world?" Yi Xian smiled. "Yes. Do you want to see the outside world together?" Tuoba Yen shook his head. "The human world hasn't been sorted out yet. Why would I want to go outside?" Hearing this, Yi Xian fell silent. The current human race had already come into contact with the civilizations of the universe outside. However, the entire human race was really very weak in the vast universe. If an outside civilization invaded human civilization with the current strength of humanity, they would not be able to resist at all. Thinking of this, Yi Xian said solemnly, "You reminded me." Tuoba Yen looked at Yi Xian. "You want to manage the entire human race?" Yi Xian looked at Tuoba Yen and said with a smile, "Tell me what you think." Tuoba Yen shook his head. "You won't be able to manage it. Although the human race has resolved the crisis this time, many people don't even know about it. If you forcefully manage it, it will only be a thankless effort." Yi Xian fell silent. Tuoba Yen said again, "Leading the entire human race forward is too tiring. I don't want you to be so tired." Yi Xian's right hand slipped restlessly into Tuoba Yen's clothes and said with a smile, "That's true." Tuoba Yen rolled his eyes at Yi Xian. "Haven't you asked for enough?" Yi Xian laughed. "Even 10 times a day isn't enough." Tuoba Yen. Soon, some discordant voices came from the hall. On the 3rd day, Yi Xian left Qingcheng. He did not head directly to the otherworldly demonic tribe but entered Xiaota. Cultivate. He was going to consolidate his cultivation at rank 9. Other than that, he also obtained 3 white balls of light from the otherworldly demonic tribe. All 3 balls of light contained an inheritance. The otherworldly demonic tribe was very interesting. They could extract all the memories and life experiences of a dying otherworldly demon and store them in a ball of light for the next otherworldly demon to use. This was what they called an inheritance. This method could ensure that the otherworldly demonic tribe would remain strong forever. Of course, there were some drawbacks. The inheritor might be affected by those memories, and this depended on the grade of the ball of light. The higher the grade, the less the inheritor would be affected. The one Xiaoan obtained was of the highest grade, and the influence was almost negligible. As for the ones Yi Xian obtained, although they were not of high grade, they could not affect him. After all, he was a swordsman. His will was not something ordinary people could compare to. The 3 balls of light were all rank 9 inheritances. This was enough for Yi Xian. He had no intention of rushing to rank 10 now. He kept 1 ball of light for himself and gave the other 2 to Lin Shan and Fan Duo. Naturally, he would not forget those who had helped him before. In Xiao Ta's body, after absorbing all the inheritances in the ball of light, Yi Xian sat cross-legged and began to digest the memories. It had to be said that the otherworldly demonic tribe was indeed much more advanced than the celestial tribe. In terms of space-time, the otherworldly demonic tribe's understanding was far superior to the celestial tribes. Other than him, Little Soul was also making a breakthrough. He was looking forward to Little Soul's breakthrough. Cultivation knew no time. About a few years later, Zhou Xian had completely grasped the fourth dimension. Not only that, after absorbing the otherworldly demonic tribe's inheritance ball, his knowledge also increased greatly. At the same time, he gained a deeper understanding of the otherworldly demonic tribe. The otherworldly demonic tribe used to be in this boundless universe. However, billions of years ago, the ancestor of the otherworldly demonic tribe stepped into the fifth dimension. Thus, he led the entire otherworldly demonic tribe to become a level 4 civilization and left this boundless universe for the higher level Tianling cosmos. They were the only race in this boundless universe to reach level 4. And now, the otherworldly demonic tribe was trying to reach level 5. At this moment, the Xian Profound Sword appeared in front of Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian collected his thoughts and looked at the Xian Profound Sword in front of him. Now, the Xian Profound Sword had made another breakthrough. Zhou Xian grasped the Xian Profound Sword and slowly closed his eyes. Power. He felt that the power contained in the Xian Profound Sword was at least 10 times stronger than before. Zhou Xian was a little dumbfounded. This increase was a little too exaggerated. At this moment, Little Soul suddenly said, "Young master, I'll take you to a place." After saying that, she directly disappeared on the spot with Zhou Xian. When they reappeared, they were already in a space-time. Zhou Xian was stunned. The space-time around him was stacked layer by layer like a tall building. Zhou Xian said solemnly, "The fifth dimension?" Little Soul giggled, "Yes. Young master, as long as you take me, you can appear in the fifth dimension. Not only that, the space-time pressure here can't hurt you at all." Zhou Xian was a little puzzled. "Why can't it hurt me?" Little Soul smiled. "I don't know. In any case, you're holding me now, so the space-time pressure can't pose any threat to you." Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment, then took a few steps forward. He had just taken a few steps when he felt countless terrifying space-time pressures, but he seemed to be transparent and the space-time pressure had no effect on him. What was going on? Zhou Xian frowned. Could it be that the Xian Profound Sword had unlocked a new function after its breakthrough? Immunity to space-time? At this thought, Zhou Xian's eyelids twitched. Was he already immune to space-time? At this thought, Zhou Xian hurriedly said, "Little Soul, can you feel the next dimension?" Little Soul said, "Yes." As she spoke, the space-time around Zhou Xian suddenly changed. Soon Zhou Xian appeared in a space-time vortex. At first glance, it was an endless space-time vortex. Zhou Xian frowned slightly. Was this the sixth dimension? Zhou Xian gulped. He glanced around. The whole vortex exuded endless space-time pressure. And the strength of this space-time pressure was at least 100 times stronger than the fifth dimension. Intuition told him that a wisp of space-time pressure could easily obliterate him. Damn. This was too exciting. Zhou Xian asked again, "Little Soul, can we go to the next dimension?" After a moment of silence, Little Soul said, "Yes." With that, the space around Zhou Xian changed and soon Zhou Xian appeared in a pitch-black darkness. Zhou Xian frowned. "This is..." Little Soul said, "It seems to be the seventh dimension." Zhou Xian glanced around and all he could see was darkness. A space-time black hole. The seventh dimension was a space-time black hole. Zhou Xian carefully sensed his surroundings. Gradually, his expression became extremely solemn. There was also space-time pressure in this endless space-time black hole, and it was at least 100 times stronger than the sixth-layer space-time pressure. This was too terrifying. Little Soul said again, "Young master, I have already felt the next dimension." Zhou Xian was silent and a great plan slowly formed in his mind. Chapter 1874. Under the guidance of Little Soul, Zhou Xian came to the 8th layer of time and space. As soon as he arrived at the 8th layer of time and space, Zhou Xian was stunned. Because he found that in front of him, there was a person who looked exactly like him. What's going on? He frowned. At this time, the him in front of him also frowned. Seeing this scene, Zhou Xian's expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly let Little Soul take him out of the 8th layer of time and space. After returning to reality, Zhou Xian's expression was extremely solemn. At that moment he suddenly felt a little flustered, or rather afraid from the bottom of his heart. What kind of time and space was that? Why was there another him? Was that him real? There was no answer. Little soul did not know either. After a moment, Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "It seems that I have to ask Qing or when I see him in the future." He did not dare to continue to explore the ninth layer of time and space. He was afraid that he would play himself to death. Yi Xian put away the azure profound sword, then took out the teleportation token given to him by the spiritual king, and the next moment he disappeared. Heavenly Spirit Universe, Otherworldly Spirit World. When Yi Xian opened his eyes, he was already in the palace of the Otherworldly Spirit World. At this time, an old otherworldly spirit suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The old man bowed respectfully to Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, the patriarch has been waiting for a long time." Yi Xian smiled slightly. "Please lead the way." The old spiritual king bowed slightly. "Follow me." After saying that, he turned around and left. Yi Xian followed the old spiritual king into a hall. In the hall, there was only the spiritual king. Seeing Yi Xian, the spiritual king got up, walked in front of Yi Xian and smiled slightly. "Little friend Yi." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Senior, this exhibition you asked me to participate in, it shouldn't be that simple, right?" The spiritual king nodded. "To be honest, this time I invited you to participate in the divine item exhibition is to ask for your help." Yi Xian was a little curious. "What kind of favor?" The otherworldly demonic king replied. "There are 3 superpowers in the Tianling cosmos. Other than our otherworldly demonic tribe, there's also the Nether Spirit tribe and the Heaven's Sanctum. On the other hand, the otherworldly demonic tribe is the sworn enemy of the Heaven's Sanctum. Every single divine artifact exhibition, the 2 of us would compete with one another, and the loser would be humiliated." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Senior wants to use my sword?" The otherworldly spirit king chuckled. "That's right." Yi Xian was silent. He hadn't forgotten that the otherworldly demonic tribe had declared that they were mortal enemies. If he were to help the otherworldly demonic tribe, he would be making a powerful enemy out of nowhere. The otherworldly demonic king suddenly spoke up. "Young friend, your 2 friends have already reached 10 Dan. Not only so, with the help of our otherworldly demonic tribe, they should be able to reach 11 Dan very soon. Other than that, I have also sent my men to keep an eye on the humans. With our otherworldly demonic tribe around, no one will be able to harm the humans." With that said, he opened his palm and a ball of light appeared in front of Yi Xian. This ball of light was nearly twice the size of the one he had given Xiaoan. The otherworldly demonic king said, "Young friend, this ball contains the heritage of a former king of our otherworldly demonic tribe. If you absorb it, you will be able to reach at least 12 Dan. Not only so, you will be able to grasp many space-time arts. Of course, even if young friend is unwilling to help our otherworldly demonic tribe, we will still gift this to you. Of course, I have to remind you that helping our otherworldly demonic tribe will only result in offending the Heaven's Sanctum. However, rest assured, our otherworldly demonic tribe will deal with the Heaven's Sanctum. We won't allow them to harm you." As he spoke, he passed the ball of light over to Yi Xian. Yi Xian shook his head with a smile. He was really a smart person. He hadn't done anything at all, but he had already received so many benefits from the other party. It was clear that the other party was making it hard for him to turn them down. Yi Xian fell silent. His guess was that the other party was trying to drag him down with them. To be more precise, the other party was trying to drag his big brother down with him. It wasn't that his thoughts were complicated, but that he had a clear mind. What right did the other party have to treat him, Yi Xian? Was it because he was handsome? Clearly not. As the king of such a fearsome race, everything he did was for the sake of his race. Such a person wouldn't mix personal emotions into his actions. As such, it was impossible for the other party to do so out of admiration for him, Yi Xian. There had to be a scheme behind it. And this scheme was definitely his big brother's doing. And he couldn't let his emotions get the better of him. Most of the time there was no such thing as camaraderie between races. There was only mutual benefit. With such thoughts in mind, Yi Xian turned to the otherworldly demonic king and said with a smile, "Elder, take a look at my sword." As he spoke, he passed the green profound sword over to the otherworldly demonic king. The otherworldly demonic king glanced at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand, and in the next instant his face warped in shock. This sword has grown stronger?" Yi Xian nodded. "That's right." As he spoke, the green profound sword dived into the 5th layer of spacetime. Upon seeing this sight, the otherworldly demonic king narrowed his eyes. The 5th layer of spacetime. The sword had actually dived into the fifth layer of spacetime. Furthermore, it was able to withstand the spatial pressure of the fifth layer. How terrifying! Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm, and the green profound sword appeared in his hand. He looked at the otherworldly demonic king and said with a smile, "Elder, I Yi Xian am an honest man. I sincerely wish to befriend the otherworldly demonic race." The otherworldly demonic king glanced at Yi Xian, and a hint of solemnity flashed in the depths of his eyes. Our otherworldly demonic race also sincerely wishes to befriend this young friend and befriend the human race. How could he not understand the meaning behind Yi Xian's words? Yi Xian did not wish to be used. Taking out the sword earlier was not only a display of his strength, but also a warning. Yi Xian smiled. "Tomorrow is the divine item exhibition, right?" The otherworldly demonic king nodded. "That's right." Yi Xian nodded. "Elder, I will return to rest for a while. I will be punctual tomorrow." The otherworldly demonic king immediately said, "Send young friend to the spirit god pavilion to rest." The old otherworldly demon who had led the way appeared before Yi Xian and bowed slightly. "Young Master Yi, please follow me." Yi Xian clasped his fist. "Elder, see you tomorrow." After which he turned around and left. After Yi Xian left, an otherworldly demon female appeared in the hall. She glanced at the distant hall and said calmly, "Father, is there a need to treat a human this way?" The otherworldly demon king glanced at the female otherworldly demon and asked, "Then what do you think?" The female otherworldly demon replied calmly, "This human is just a lowly being created by the celestial race. Putting them aside, even the celestial race is nothing more than an ant in the eyes of our otherworldly demonic race." "Shut up." The otherworldly demon king suddenly bellowed. The female otherworldly demon's face darkened and she hurriedly lowered her head. The otherworldly demon king turned to the female otherworldly demon king and said, "Did you see the sword in his hand? The spacetime mastery contained in that sword has already surpassed our otherworldly demonic race." Hearing this, the female otherworldly demon king's face was filled with shock. "How is that possible?" The otherworldly demon king said softly, "Under normal circumstances it is not very possible. But that is the truth. His big brother defeated me with a single sword." As he spoke, he slowly closed his eyes. "The reason why I allowed him to come here and participate in the God Item exhibition was to rope him in and make Heaven's sanctum target him. But who would have thought that this little fellow would see through my intentions?" The female otherworldly demon king said solemnly, "Then Father, what should we do now?" After a moment of silence, the otherworldly demon king said, "Keep expressing goodwill." The female otherworldly demon king frowned. "But if he only takes benefits without doing anything," the otherworldly demon king laughed and said, "I don't believe that his skin is that thick." Under the lead of the otherworldly demon king, Yi Xian arrived at the spirit god pavilion. As soon as he entered the spirit god pavilion, an extremely pure spiritual energy rushed toward him. The otherworldly demon king bowed slightly and said, "Young Master Yi, rest well." After saying those words, he left the room. Yi Xian entered Xiao Ta's body and took out the inheritance orb that the otherworldly demon king had given him. He infused his Xianxia into it and the orb disappeared into his glabella. In an instant, countless information surged into his mind. Rank 10 expert. In order to reach rank 10, one had to overlap the spacetime of the first layer to the fourth layer, forming a spacetime overlap. Just like Namo Wuxian. Naturally, it was not easy to achieve this. However, there was a method in the inheritance orb. Yi Xian realized that the inheritance orb was really like cheating. It was a complete duplication. Strength came too easily. It was because the otherworldly demonic tribe had such a method that they were able to maintain the number of experts in their tribe. When an expert fell, it wouldn't take long for the tribe to groom another expert. Under such circumstances, as long as the otherworldly demonic tribe did not provoke a civilization of a higher level, ordinary civilizations would not be able to stand against them. Of course, this kind of inheritance light ball also had a flaw, and that was that it was too easy to obtain strength. Moreover, it was all the path that the inheritor had taken. Under such circumstances, it was almost impossible for the inheritor to surpass the original owner. In the otherworldly demonic tribe, there was basically no one who could surpass the original owner. This was a huge flaw. Nevertheless, the inheritance orb was still something that countless otherworldly demonic tribe dreamed of. This was cheating. Normally it would take at least 100,000 years to reach rank 10. However, with the inheritance orb it would take less than 10,000 years. This shortened the time required by at least 10 times. At this moment Xian was hesitating. Should I use it or not? Without much hesitation he decided to use it. Of course he wouldn't copy the other party completely. He needed to learn from the other party's experience, especially the other party's manipulation of space-time. This was what he wanted to learn the most at the moment. Time passed quickly. The next day the otherworldly demon elder arrived at the door of Xian's room. He bowed slightly and said, "Young Master Yi, the God item exhibition is about to begin." A moment later the door opened, and Xian appeared in front of the otherworldly demon elder. The otherworldly demon elder bowed slightly again and said, "Young Master Yi, the chief is waiting outside." Xian smiled and said, "Let's go." Xian followed the otherworldly demon elder to the entrance of the palace. The otherworldly demon king was already waiting there. The otherworldly demon king smiled and said, "Little friend Yi, let's walk there. On the way I will explain the Tianling universe to you." Xian smiled and said, "I also want to know more about this universe." The otherworldly demon king nodded and led Xian into the distance. On the way the otherworldly demon king said, "Little friend Yi, may I ask which civilization the creator of this sword came from? Which civilization did Qing'er come from?" Xian thought for a moment and said, "Probably from a civilization called Invincible." Otherworldly demon king. "P.S. The new year is coming and I'm going to be busy. I'm saving up my manuscripts so that I can play for a few days during the new year. I don't have enough updates so I don't like it. Anyway, I will work hard to save more manuscripts and strive for more and more. Also, does anyone want a walk-on? If you do, you can leave your name in the book review section. I will choose a few more eye-catching cameos. If you have any suggestions, feel free to tell me. I will try my best to reply. As for the votes, don't vote. I haven't updated much and sometimes I'm a little weak. Give me the votes, I'm a little ashamed." Chapter 1875. What civilization does the Qing'er belong to? Xian really didn't know. In any case, as far as he was concerned, Qing'er was invincible. From the moment he met Qing'er, she had always been invincible. When he met the god race, he thought that the god race who had created the human race could break the myth of the Qing'er's invincibility. However, it turned out that the god race who had created the human race was like an ant in front of the Qing'er. Just how strong was she? He didn't know, but the moment he asked, it was invincible. Hearing Xian's words, the otherworldly spirit king fell silent. Invincible. To him, saying that it was invincible was a little exaggerated. However, there was no need to doubt the strength of the person who had created the sword. The other party was at least an expert from a level 5 civilization. A level 5 civilization. With such a thought in mind, the otherworldly spirit king's expression became a little complicated. The otherworldly demonic tribe had been striving for innumerable years to reach the level of a tier 5 civilization, but even now there was no hope at all. He had never thought that a human could reach a level 5 civilization. Even the god race who had created the human race was only a level 3 civilization. The human race was about to rise. The otherworldly spirit king sighed deeply. Xian suddenly asked, "Senior, is there a level 5 civilization in the heavenly spirit universe?" The otherworldly spirit king shook his head. "No." Xian frowned. "Not before." The otherworldly spirit king hesitated for a moment before he said, "A very long time ago, there was an extremely powerful race in this universe called the spirit beast race. They were originally demon beasts and their strength was mediocre. However, an extraordinary genius appeared in their race, Yao. This beast reached the legendary 14th stage and stepped into the 6th layer of spacetime. Because of his breakthrough, the entire beast race's bloodline broke through its shackles and evolved into a spirit. Under Yao's lead, the spirit beast race entered a level 5 civilization. However, for some unknown reason they completely disappeared. According to our speculations, they either encountered an invincible civilization, or they left the heavenly spirit universe." Xian said solemnly, "Once your bloodline reaches a certain level, you can also enter a higher civilization?" The otherworldly spirit king chuckled. "Of course." Xian furrowed his brows and was a little puzzled. His bloodline wasn't bad. Why was he still so weak? Could father have done something to it? The otherworldly spirit king continued. The heavenly spirit cosmos is also facing a huge problem. Once this problem erupts, the entire heavenly spirit cosmos will be in chaos. Xian retracted his thoughts and turned to the otherworldly spirit king. A huge problem? The spirit king nodded. There is a problem with the spiritual energy. Xian said in a deep voice. Is the spiritual energy in this universe not enough? The otherworldly spirit king said, of course it's not enough. You should know that any expert who has reached a certain level can easily live for hundreds of thousands of years. The longer a person lives, the greater their need for the spiritual qi of this world. The heavenly spirit universe has a history of at least 1 trillion years since its birth. And over these years, the living beings of this universe have been absorbing the spiritual qi of this universe without any restraint. Now it can be said that it has reached the end of the line. If we can't break through to a level 5 civilization and leave this universe will start killing each other. Xian asked, Elder, you mentioned that there are 3 superpowers in this universe. Other than the otherworldly demonic tribe, there's also the netherworld tribe and the heaven's sanctum, right? The otherworldly spirit king nodded. Yes. Xian said, Elder, can you tell me more about those 2 superpowers? The otherworldly spirit king smiled. Of course. The netherworld tribe is a special race. They live in the land of Yin. They love the aura of death and they are good at seducing souls. They are a very strange race. Even the otherworldly demonic tribe doesn't want to provoke them. Of course we aren't afraid of them either. They don't come out much either and they usually stay in the realm of Yin. At this point he looked at Xian and said seriously, little friend, remember, don't step into the realm of Yin if you don't have anything to do. It's not a place that ordinary living beings can stay in. Xian smiled bitterly. Elder, now that you mention it, I have a feeling that I might appear in that place in the future. The otherworldly spirit king frowned. What? Xian shook his head. Intuition. The otherworldly spirit king. Xian said again, Elder, tell me more about the heaven's sanctum. The otherworldly spirit king's face gradually turned cold. The Heaven's Sanctum was originally an organization of unaffiliated cultivators. However, as it grew larger and larger, there are all kinds of living beings in it. There seems to be a human among them. Xian frowned. A human. The otherworldly spirit king nodded. There seems to be a human among them. Xian's curiosity was piqued. At this moment the otherworldly spirit king suddenly said, Little friend, we have arrived. Xian retracted his thoughts and raised his head. There was a huge palace in the air not too far away. The palace seemed to be made out of crystal and the outer walls were smooth like mirrors. Furthermore, it was rotating slowly, looking extremely luxurious. The otherworldly spirit king said, This is the odd crystal palace. Usually, if our otherworldly demonic tribe has any auctions, we will hold it here. After the exhibition of the god item, there will be a batch of god items being auctioned here. If little friend is interested, you can buy them. Xian blinked his eyes. What do you want to buy them with? The otherworldly spirit king opened his palm, and a dark purple crystal appeared in his hand. This is a heavenly crystal, the currency of our celestial spirit cosmos. Heavenly crystals are divided into low-grade, high-grade, and supreme grade. A supreme-grade heavenly crystal is sufficient for a stage 10 expert to cultivate for a year. As he spoke, he smiled. Cultivation is actually very expensive. Little friend should have experienced it, right? Xian shook his head. I have never been short of money. The otherworldly spirit king's expression froze. Just as Xian said, he had never been short of money. Cultivation resources? He really had never been short of money. At this moment, a female otherworldly spirit walked in front of them. The female otherworldly spirit said, Royal Father. As she spoke, she glanced at Xian. Young Master Yi, nice to meet you. The otherworldly spirit king smiled. Little friend, she is my daughter Yiqin. Xian smiled. Nice to meet you, Miss Yiqin. Yiqin smiled. Royal Father, young Master Yi, the exhibition is about to begin. Let's take a seat. The otherworldly spirit king nodded. Little friend Yi, please. Xian smiled. Senior, please. The otherworldly spirit king smiled. Let's go together. In front of Xian, he really did not dare to be careless. After the 3 of them entered Heavenly Crystal Hall, Xian discovered that the interior of Heavenly Crystal Hall was extremely large. There was no obstruction at the top, and one could see the blue sky and white clouds with a single glance. At the center of Heavenly Crystal Hall, there was a huge circular platform. The circular platform was over a dozen zhang tall. On the circular platform stood an otherworldly spirit female, and around the circular platform were huge floating chairs. At this moment there were already people sitting on the floating chairs. Clearly, they were here to participate in the divine object exhibition. The otherworldly spirit king brought Zhou Xian to the seat at the very front and sat down. He turned his head to the right. Not far away there was a middle-aged man sitting there. The middle-aged man had 2 horns on his head, and there was a faint smile on his face. When Zhou Xian sat down, he glanced at Zhou Xian. Beside Zhou Xian, the otherworldly spirit king said, "This person is the current Heaven's Sanctum Master, Mu Tian from the Rhino Spirit Clan." Zhou Xian glanced at Mu Tian. Unfathomable. Mu Tian suddenly looked at Zhou Xian and smiled. "This little brother is?" Zhou Xian smiled. "Human race, Zhou Xian." "Human race." Mu Tian smiled. "So it's young Master Yi of the human race. It's an honor to meet you." Zhou Xian was speechless. "Honor my asterisk. Do you know me?" The otherworldly spirit king smiled. "Manor Master Mu, I wonder what divine object your Heaven's Sanctum has brought this time? I'm looking forward to it." Mu Tian laughed. He didn't answer the otherworldly spirit king. Instead he looked at Zhou Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi should be new to the heavenly spirit cosmos. I have something to give to young Master Yi." As he spoke, he opened his palm, and a divine object appeared in his hand. At this moment Zhou Xian suddenly smiled. "There's no need for that." Hearing this, Mu Tian was stunned. The otherworldly spirit king beside Zhou Xian looked at Zhou Xian with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Zhou Xian smiled. "Manor Master Mu, thank you for your kindness. If I need anything, I will look for the otherworldly demonic tribe." Mu Tian's smile gradually disappeared. The otherworldly spirit king laughed. "Young friend Yi, if you need anything, feel free to tell us. As long as the otherworldly demonic tribe has it, we will not be stingy." Zhou Xian smiled. "Thank you." Is Mu Tian expressing goodwill? No. Zhou Xian knew that the other party was trying to drive a wedge between him and the otherworldly demonic tribe. If he were to accept Mu Tian's gift, the otherworldly demonic tribe would surely feel displeased. Would he be able to form a good relationship with the Heaven's Sanctum? No. The Heaven's Sanctum had never seen his big brother's strength before, so it was impossible for the other party to respect him as much as the otherworldly demonic tribe did. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. One had to be more vigilant in order to survive in the outside world. One mustn't be blinded by the benefits before them. Mu Tian glanced at Zhou Xian and chuckled. After which, he retracted his gaze and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. Beside Zhou Xian, the otherworldly spirit king revealed a smile. "A human." At this moment, a light chuckle sounded not too far away from him. Zhou Xian turned around and saw a man standing not too far away. A human. Zhou Xian was taken aback. Was that the human expert who had walked out from the human cosmos? Beside Zhou Xian, the otherworldly spirit king said, "His name is Ling Tian and he's a human expert. He's currently an elder of the Heaven's Sanctum, a rank 12 pinnacle expert." Ling Tian walked over to Mu Tian's side and he turned to Zhou Xian with a smile. To think that after so many years, a human expert would finally emerge from the human race. Zhou Xian chuckled. Indeed, it isn't easy for the human race. At this moment, Mu Tian suddenly burst into laughter. "Elder Ling Tian, as the #1 expert of the human race, why don't you tell us about the human race so that we can understand it better?" Zhou Xian frowned. "#1 expert of the human race?" Mu Tian turned to Zhou Xian and chuckled. "Elder Ling Tian is the #1 expert of the human race. Why, do you have a problem with that?" Zhou Xian glanced at Ling Tian. Was the #1 expert of the human race self-proclaimed? The otherworldly spirit king burst into laughter. "Must be." Mu Tian chuckled. "It seems like young Master Yi isn't convinced. Since you're not convinced, why don't you challenge me to a duel?" Ling Tian chuckled. "I can do it any time." As he spoke, he glanced at Zhou Xian. "What about you?" Zhou Xian took out the profound azure sword. With a thought, the profound azure sword entered the sixth spacetime. Seeing this, the expressions of Ling Tian and the others froze. Zhou Xian chuckled. "A duel? A mere rank 12 is boring. Come, Mu Tian abode master, summon your ancestor. Everyone was speechless. Chapter 1876. Ancestor summoning. Everyone was shocked when they heard that. How arrogant. He actually dared to make the heaven's sanctum summoning ancestor summoning. However, all the experts in the surroundings fell silent when they saw Yi Xian's azure sword, and their expressions gradually became solemn. The sixth layer of spacetime. The sword actually entered the sixth layer of spacetime. The sixth layer of spacetime. After all, even Mu Tian and the otherworldly demonic king were only at the 13th stage and they could only enter the fifth layer of spacetime. However, this human could actually enter the sixth layer of spacetime. Mu Tian stared at Yi Xian with an extremely solemn expression. The sword before him had really surpassed the fifth layer of spacetime. Who exactly is this human? Mu Tian wasn't the only one. Even the otherworldly demonic king was stunned. He didn't expect Yi Xian to be able to enter the sixth layer of spacetime. After all, Yi Xian was only at the 9th stage of spacetime. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Master Mu Tian, I'm still waiting for you to summon your ancestor. Mu Tian hesitated for a moment before he cupped his fists. Sir, I was rude just now. Please don't take it to heart. Yi Xian looked at Mu Tian, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. Do you really believe that I won't take it to heart just because you said so? Mu Tian's expression became slightly unsightly. Yi Xian suddenly grinned and opened his palm, and the azure sword flew into his hand. Since Master Mu Tian doesn't want to summon your ancestor, then let's have a spar. I'll be responsible for my own life and death. He'll be responsible for his own life and death. All the experts looked at Mu Tian. Would Mu Tian dare to accept the challenge? Mu Tian's expression was extremely unsightly. If he refused, how could he continue living in this world? However, if he accepted the challenge, then it would be a life and death battle. This human before him was so mysterious and he had no confidence at all. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, You're not going to accept the challenge and you're not giving me any benefits. Master Mu Tian, what's the meaning of this? Give me benefits? Mu Tian was stunned and then he hurriedly said, Please forgive me for my rudeness just now. With that said, a storage ring silently appeared in Yi Xian's hand. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Damn, this person has some skills. He didn't even sense any spatial fluctuations before the storage ring appeared in his hand. He might not be able to beat them. Yi Xian naturally had to stop while he was ahead. Otherwise, wouldn't he be embarrassed if the other party really summoned his ancestor? Although he could enter the 8th spacetime continuum or even the 9th spacetime continuum, he could only go in and do nothing else. This move could only be used to scare people. Yi Xian glanced at the storage ring on his hand. There were a total of 100,000 supreme-grade heaven crystals in it. It was enough for a long time. Yi Xian sheathed the azure profound sword. Forget it. Hearing this, Mu Tian relaxed. He was truly a little afraid of Yi Xian. Furthermore, there was no need for the heaven's sanctum to provoke an expert like Yi Xian. Spending some money to resolve this matter naturally couldn't be any better. However, he was still slightly worried because Yi Xian was very close to the otherworldly demonic race. At this moment, a slightly hoarse voice suddenly resounded from the side. Young Master Yi. Yi Xian turned around and saw a black-clothed expert floating not too far away. This black-clothed expert's entire body was covered in black clothes, and his true appearance couldn't be seen. Moreover, there was an extremely dense spirit death energy around him. The otherworldly spirit king by Yi Xian's side said in a low voice, This is the patriarch of the nether spirit race, Ming Dao. Yi Xian nodded slightly and looked at Ming Dao. Do you need something? Ming Dao looked at Yi Xian. After this exhibition ends, I wonder if young Master Yi would do me the honor of visiting my spirit dimension. Yi Xian smiled. Qingqing Yi family ancestral hall, ancestors above. Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From this moment on, Yi Xian's position as crown prince will be removed, and Yi Lang will succeed him. The one who spoke was an old man wearing a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile hanging on the corner of his mouth. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi family's elders. Why? At this moment, a somewhat timid voice suddenly resounded in the ancestral hall. Everyone looked over and saw a little girl standing at the door. The little girl was about 12 or 13 years old, and her two small hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face was sickly pale and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of timidity in her eyes. This little girl was called Yiling and she was Yi Xian's blood sister. This time when she heard that the family wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yiling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yiling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a crown prince. Why did you remove his title for no reason? The Great Elder looked coldly at Yiling. This is a family matter, what are you interrupting? Leave. Yiling was obviously afraid and did not dare to look at the Great Elder, but she did not leave. Instead she plucked up her courage and entered the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li family over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the family and his life is uncertain. But the family is using a groundless excuse to remove his crown prince position. This is really unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. Whether he is removed or not, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away from me. At this moment the new crown prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder said coldly, then flog 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi mansion rushed in. Yiling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the family for so many years and even now he is fighting for the family, but the family is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince Yi Lang, and he knew that his chance to show off had come. The guard sneered, Young Master Yi Lang inherits the crown prince position and it is everyone's wish. What are you shouting for? As he said this he raised his hand and slapped Yiling's face. Slap. The crisp sound of the slap was heard, and the right side of Yiling's face instantly turned red and swollen, but she did not cry. She just covered her cheek with her hand. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled, What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. I'm Zhang Mu, greeting the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded, You're not bad. After I become the crown prince I will need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed deeply. I will go through fire and water for the crown prince and I will risk my life for you. Yi Lang nodded slightly. Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall, so don't show any mercy, understand? Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment Zhang Mu suddenly saw something and he suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe and the robe was tattered and there was blood everywhere. This person was Yi Xian who had rushed back from the South Mountain. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. Inside the ancestral hall the elders frowned. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes and his face was gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yiling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yiling did not stop there. He charged towards Zhang Mu once more. At this time Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, Your man? As he spoke he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed out. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you discard him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan, why are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the Great Elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. Discard him or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time the new prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder replied coldly, then flog her 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now he is risking his life for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you yelling about? As he spoke he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry. She only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince. Yi Lang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the prince I will need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince. Yi Lang nodded. Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back. Understood? Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to see something and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time Yi Xian was like a ferocious tiger leaping in front of him. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Ping. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Pooh. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, Your man? As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Chapter 1877. The otherworldly spiritual king's face sank when he heard Mu Tian agree so quickly. Why is Mu Tian so confident? Yi Xian looked at Mu Tian and smiled. You're extraordinarily confident. Mu Tian smiled. It's fine if you want to back out now. Yi Xian turned to look at the otherworldly spiritual king. How many minds are there in the heaven's sanctum? The otherworldly spiritual king replied, about 12. Yi Xian looked at Mu Tian, 12 minds. Mu Tian didn't hesitate. Sure. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was slightly shocked. 12 heavenly crystal minds, that was the entire wealth of the heavens abode. Why did the heavens sanctum dare to make such a bet? Yi Xian smiled. Then let's begin. I don't think the heavens sanctum master will use this dimensional soul spike to compete with me, right? Mu Tian smiled. Of course. He turned around and saw a black-robed powerhouse standing not far away. Just like Daoist, the black-robed powerhouse was completely shrouded in a black robe. The black-robed man walked up to Yi Xian and said in a hoarse voice, You won't go back on your word, right? Yi Xian smiled. I won't. The black-robed man nodded. He opened his palm and a square crystal seal appeared in his hand. Boom. In an instant the space around the crystal seal started to distort. At the same time the surrounding spacetime started to distort. Under everyone's gazes the crystal seal entered the fourth layer of spacetime. After a brief pause, it immediately entered the fifth layer of spacetime. The fifth layer of spacetime. The expressions of all the experts became solemn when they witnessed this scene. What is this crystal seal? How can it enter the fifth layer of spacetime? Suddenly the black-robed man said, Suppress. The crystal seal suddenly started to spin. In the blink of an eye, a terrifying spacetime pressure suddenly appeared in the hull. Some of the weaker powerhouses were directly crushed. Everyone's expressions changed drastically, including the otherworldly spiritual king by Yi Xian's side. This square crystal seal actually brought the spacetime pressure of the fifth layer of spacetime to reality. That was not the end. Under the control of Black Robe, the square crystal seal suddenly became illusory. In the blink of an eye, it arrived at the sixth layer of spacetime. The sixth layer of spacetime. The countless experts in the surroundings were flabbergasted by this scene. This square crystal seal could actually enter the sixth layer of spacetime. However, this was not the end. After the square crystal seal entered the sixth layer of spacetime, a spatial pressure that was 100 times stronger than before suddenly appeared in the surroundings. Boom. In an instant the entire heavenly crystal palace turned into nothingness. The experts in the surroundings were horrified as they fled. Even the otherworldly spirit king Mu Tian and Ming Dao retreated. The strength of the spacetime pressure was something that even they were extremely fearful of. They were all experts at the peak of the 13th phase and could enter and control the 5th space. However, they were still unfamiliar with the 6th space. As if they had thought of something, the few of them looked at Yi Xian in shock. Yi Xian didn't even take a step back. At this moment, the otherworldly spirit king was slightly stunned. Could it be that young Master Yi has been acting weak all this time? Black Robe spoke in a hoarse voice before Yi Xian. This item is called the Spacetime Spirit Seal. Not only can it be used to enter the 6th layer of spacetime, it can also be used to control the spacetime energy of the 6th layer of spacetime. I wonder if your sword can do the same? Yi Xian smiled. No wonder all of you are so confident. So it's because you have such a divine treasure. Black Robe said, Young Master Yi, it's your turn. As he spoke, he opened his palm and the spacetime seal returned to his hand. In an instant, the terrifying spacetime pressure vanished without a trace. Yi Xian suddenly asked, I wonder if your spacetime seal can enter the 7th layer of spacetime? Black Robe said, It can't. The 7th layer of spacetime is filled with boundless profundities. No divine treasure can enter it. This is absolutely. Right at this moment, the azure sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly trembled violently. In the next moment, the azure sword directly entered the 6th layer of spacetime. Before anyone could react, the azure sword had entered the next layer of spacetime, the 7th layer of spacetime. The expressions of all the experts changed drastically at the sight of this. The otherworldly spirit king and Ming Dao, who were not far behind Yi Xian, were already trembling. The 6th layer of spacetime was unfamiliar to them, but the 7th layer of spacetime wasn't unfamiliar to them. It was simply a legend that they didn't even dare to imagine. But now they had personally witnessed the seventh layer of spacetime. Black Robe fell silent before Yi Xian and his hands were trembling. The seventh layer of spacetime. Others might not know what it meant to be able to enter the seventh layer of spacetime, but he did. At this moment Yi Xian opened his palm, and the azure sword appeared in his hand. He looked at Black Robe and smiled. Do you still want to compete? Black Robe fell silent for a moment before he said, We've lost. Yi Xian looked at Mu Tian and smiled. Master Mu Tian, where's my celestial ore? Mu Tian's expression was extremely unsightly. He hadn't expected that Black Robe would actually lose. After all, Black Robe was from that place. Meanwhile, Black Robe suddenly opened his palm and a spatial ring floated over to Yi Xian. Yi Xian glanced at it, and there were a total of 12 celestial ore within the spatial ring. Yi Xian naturally wouldn't stand on ceremony and he put it away with a smile. Thank you. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Meanwhile, Black Robe suddenly said, May I know where you're from? Yi Xian stopped and said with a smile, What? Black Robe asked, Are you selling this sword? Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. You want to buy this sword? Black Robe nodded. You can name a price. We can discuss any conditions. Yi Xian smiled. Let me think about it. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Seeing that Yi Xian didn't directly refuse, Black Robe's tightly clenched right hand slowly loosened. Since he didn't directly refuse, it meant that there might be room for discussion. He was wary of Yi Xian, but from his point of view Yi Xian's sword could enter the seventh spacetime, but that didn't mean that Yi Xian himself could enter the seventh spacetime. It was just like his spacetime seal. The spacetime seal could enter the sixth spacetime, but he couldn't enter the sixth spacetime. A godly item that could enter the seventh spacetime must be obtained. After Yi Xian and the others left, Mu Tian looked at Black Robe and said in a deep voice, Elder Jean, is it possible that Yi Xian is from a level 6 civilization? Black Robe shook his head. Absolutely impossible. Mu Tian was a little puzzled. Why? Black Robe said softly. Because even the Tian clan had never come into contact with a level 6 civilization. Moreover, entering the 7th spacetime doesn't mean that you can be considered a level 6 civilization. Not to mention becoming a level 6 civilization, even becoming a level 5 civilization isn't that simple. The complexity and difficulty of this requires a race to struggle for at least tens of millions of years. Mu Tian's face darkened. Black Robe said again, Keep an eye on this person for me. I need to make some preparations. After saying that, he turned around and left. Mu Tian looked into the distance and a hint of worry flashed in his eyes. Obviously, this elder Qi was determined to get the sword in Yi Xian's hand. Yi Xian followed the spiritual king back to the otherworldly spirit tribe. After returning, Yi Xian immediately said, Senior, do you know who that Black Robe is? The spiritual king shook his head. I don't know. However, I can be sure that he is definitely not from heaven's sanctum. Yi Xian said, Can you help me investigate? The spiritual king nodded. Of course. When I returned, I had already sent people to investigate him thoroughly. But, at this point, he said in a deep voice, I'm afraid it will be difficult to find anything. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian smiled and said, Senior, I need to go into seclusion for a period of time. The spiritual king nodded. All right. After saying that, he hesitated for a moment before saying, Thank you for your help today, little friend. Otherwise, our celestial coffin and celestial crystal mine would have belonged to heaven's sanctum. Yi Xian said with a smile, It's nothing. The spiritual king said with a smile, No matter what, thank you. Yi Xian nodded and did not say anything else. He entered the hall and returned to Xiaota. After entering Xiaota, Yi Xian's face darkened. That Black Robe was obviously targeting him. So the question was, who was the other party? To be able to possess such a spatial spirit seal, it was definitely not an ordinary person. It was very likely that he was from a level 5 civilization. A level 5 civilization. Yi Xian frowned deeply. Was he being targeted by a level 5 civilization again? Yi Xian lowered his head to look at the azure profound sword in his hand and shook his head with a smile. He thought that after coming to Tianling Cosmos he could live a few days of peace, but he did not expect that a mysterious enemy would appear. What a headache. At that moment Xiaota suddenly said, Young master, don't worry. We don't care about life and death. If we're not happy, we'll fight. When have we ever been afraid of anyone? Yixian's face darkened. Xiao Ta, I realize that you've been a little arrogant recently. Xiao Ta said with a serious expression. Young master, I've been modified by Sister Tianming. In the entire universe apart from the 3 swords, who can do anything to me, Xiao Ta? Yixian was speechless. Xiao Ta said again, in any case, I'm not worried about anything. Yixian was speechless. Ever since Xiao Ta had been modified by Qing, he was no longer an ordinary arrogant person. Apart from the 3 swords, he no longer cared about anyone. No, apart from Qing, this guy even looked down on his father and big brother. Without thinking too much, Yixian sat cross-legged on the ground and began to cultivate. He had to start breaking through to level 10 now. Somewhere in an unknown star field. The illusion race. The illusion race's clan leader stood on the city wall and looked at the starry sky. At that moment he had risen from level 16 to level 17. Level 17 was also known as the absolute despair realm. This was the limit that a level 6 civilization could reach. The reason why he could break through was because of the woman in the plain dress's guidance. The woman in the plain dress. Thinking of this, the illusion race's clan leader's expression gradually became serious. Even now, every time he thought of the woman in the plain dress, he could not help but feel fear. Just how strong was that woman? He did not know. He had no way of estimating her strength. At that moment, the space in front of the illusion race's clan leader was suddenly torn open. The next moment, an illusion race powerhouse appeared in front of the clan leader. The powerhouse said excitedly, "Clan leader, we found young Master Yi." Hearing this, the illusion race's clan leader's pupils suddenly shrank. Chapter 1878. The illusion tribe leader stared at the illusion tribe expert in front of him. Where is young Master Yi now? The illusion tribe expert said in a deep voice. He is in Sky Spirit Universe. The illusion tribe leader frowned. Sky Spirit Universe? The illusion tribe expert nodded. A level 4 civilization universe. The illusion tribe leader was confused. Why is young Master Yi in such a low-level civilization universe? The illusion tribe expert shook his head. I don't know. The illusion tribe leader was silent for a moment before saying, pass down my order. All the experts in my tribe who have reached level 14 are to head to Sky Spirit Universe to receive young Master Yi. Hearing this, the illusion tribe expert was confused. The illusion tribe leader looked at the illusion tribe expert in front of him. Is there a problem? The illusion tribe expert hesitated for a moment before saying, all of them? The illusion tribe leader nodded. Not only that, I will go personally. The illusion tribe expert was shocked. Tribe leader. The illusion tribe leader slowly closed his eyes. My tribe will welcome young Master Yi with the highest standards. The illusion tribe expert was speechless. Inside Xiao. During this period of time, Yixian was able to overlap the 1st to 4th spacetime and form spacetime pressure. Could be said that the current him was already a level 10 expert. Especially with his sword skills and the profound green sword, he was almost invincible among those of the same level. However, he discovered a fatal problem. Ever since he came into contact with the celestial tribe, his cultivation had been inseparable from the spacetime Tao. Even the current otherworldly demonic tribe focused on studying the spacetime Tao. Of course, this was not a problem. However, he did not forget that he, Yixian, was a swordsman. Back then, his big brother's words had shocked him because his big brother did not understand the spacetime Tao at all. His big brother only understood the sword. However, his big brother's sword could break through all space-time. Swordsman. Yixian sat cross-legged on the ground and fell into silence. During this period of time he had not cultivated the sword and had been cultivating the Tao of spacetime. His Tao of spacetime had indeed become much stronger. Now not only was he invincible under the 10th phase, but even 11th phase experts might not be his match. However, his sword Tao attainment had not improved at all. Sword. Yixian looked at the green profound sword in his hand and sighed in his heart. He had neglected the sword Tao during this period of time. He also wanted to improve his sword Tao, but his sword Tao had reached a bottleneck. It was very difficult for him to ascend again. Among the human swordsmen, other than the 3 of them, he could be said to be the most powerful. Now he could only rely on himself to explore the way of the sword. Seeming to have thought of something, Yixian frowned. I've broken through a lot recently, But why hasn't there been any movement in the sword Dao imprints of my father and big brother? At the thought of this, Yi Xian sensed the 2 sword Dao marks, but there was no movement at all. Yi Xian's face darkened. This sword Dao imprint couldn't have been tampered with by his father, right? At that moment, the otherworldly spirit king's voice sounded from outside the hall. Young friend Yi Xian. Yi Xian recollected his thoughts and left Xiaota. When he opened the door, the otherworldly spirit king said in a deep voice, "Young friend, I have bad news." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "What is it?" The otherworldly spirit king nodded. "That black-robed man is from a level 5 civilization." Yi Xian chuckled. "Just as I guessed." The otherworldly spirit king said again, "He is determined to obtain your sword. He might make a move soon." Yi Xian said softly, "I never thought that I would be targeted by someone from a level 5 civilization the moment I arrived. I really admire myself." The otherworldly spirit king said in a deep voice, "His target is your sword." Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, a terrifying pressure suddenly swept over from the sky. Boom. In an instant, the entire sky became illusory. The otherworldly spirit king's expression changed drastically. "He's here." Yi Xian raised his head to look at the sky. The sky suddenly split open, and a mysterious expert wearing a black robe slowly walked out. Seeing the black robe, the otherworldly spirit king's face immediately darkened. The other party was not giving the otherworldly demonic tribe any face. The black robe looked down at Yi Xian and said in a hoarse voice, "Young Master Yi, have you made up your mind?" Yi Xian smiled. "How much are you willing to pay for my sword?" The black robe said, "Young Master Ye's life." Yi Xian's lips curled up slightly. "In other words, if I don't sell it, I will lose my life. Am I right?" The black robe said, "Yes." At this moment, the otherworldly spirit king suddenly said, "Sir, you are being too overbearing." The black robe looked at the otherworldly spirit king. "Does the otherworldly demonic tribe intend to interfere?" The otherworldly spirit king looked straight at the black robe. "So what if I interfere?" The black robe nodded. He waved his right hand lightly, and in an instant, more than 30 illusory figures appeared around him. Seeing the 30 illusory figures, the otherworldly spirit king's face immediately turned grim. Even the weakest of these illusory figures was at 12 Dan. Among them there were even 5 who were at 13 Dan. Including the black robe, there were a total of 6 13 Dan experts. 3 13 Dan experts. One must know that the otherworldly demonic tribe only had 2 13 Dan experts and there were slightly more 12 Dan experts, but that was still a total of 9. In terms of strength, the otherworldly demonic tribe was already superior to the otherworldly demonic tribe. The otherworldly spirit king's complexion turned awful. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly smiled. "This is a matter between you and me. It has nothing to do with the otherworldly demonic tribe. Let's talk elsewhere." There was no reason for him to drag the otherworldly demonic tribe down with him. After all, the otherworldly demonic tribe didn't owe him anything. On the contrary, they had already helped him enough. If he were to drag the otherworldly demonic tribe down with him now, it would be a little dishonorable. In the sky, the black robe nodded. "Sure." The otherworldly spirit king opened his mouth to speak but hesitated. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Elder, this matter has nothing to do with you. I am grateful to the otherworldly demonic tribe for your hospitality and help over the past few days." The otherworldly spirit king sighed deeply. "Young friend, I am very sorry." He wanted to help Yi Xian, but the price he had to pay was simply too great. He was the head of the otherworldly demonic tribe, and he couldn't allow his emotions to affect his decisions. One must know that if he were to forcefully help Yi Xian, it would mean the deaths of countless tribesmen. Furthermore, there was no guarantee that he would be able to help them. One must know that the black robe before him was from a Tier 5 civilization. That was not an existence that the otherworldly demonic tribe could deal with at the moment. Yi Xian smiled. "Elder, we will meet again." After saying those words, he vanished from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already in a vast starry sky, and the black robe and the others were already standing before him. Yi Xian opened his palm and the verdant profound sword appeared in his hand. Looking at the black robe, he smiled and said, "Do you want to fight me one-on-one or gang up on me?" The black robe replied, "Gang up on me." As soon as he said those words, the experts behind him charged toward Yi Xian. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Damn it, this isn't playing by the rules. A wisp of a savage smile appeared on the corners of Yi Xian's mouth as he gazed at the few tens of people that charged towards him. In an instant his entire body was covered in blood, and in the next moment he suddenly slashed forward with the azure sword in his hand. A blood-red sword ray tore through the sky. The leader of the group, a 13th phase expert, punched the sword ray. Rumble. The sword ray shattered. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly appeared before him and he slashed down with his sword. Sword drawing technique. 2,800 stacked sword drawing techniques. This was his current limit, his true limit, because he had even used the power of his bloodline. As this sword slashed down, the fourth layer of spacetime was directly shattered. Rumble. The 13th phase expert was forced back several thousand zhang. However, at this moment, a powerful force swept over and instantly engulfed Yi Xian. Bang. The sword ray shattered while Yi Xian retreated explosively for 30 kilometers. As soon as he stopped moving, an enormous palm that was 300 m long suddenly descended from the sky, and the powerful pressure it emanated crushed and obliterated the space he resided in. Yi Xian stomped his right foot on the ground and drew his sword. A ray of sword light slashed directly onto the enormous palm, causing it to tremble violently while a destructive force erupted from it. Yi Xian blocked it with his sword and activated his sword domain. Bang! The powerful force was completely blocked by his sword domain. Meanwhile, the space he resided in suddenly became illusory. Yi Xian swiftly turned around. A mysterious expert was silently chanting an incantation nearby, and then Yi Xian gradually started to descend. In the eyes of others he was still standing on the spot, but he was actually falling madly. A spatial abyss. Right at this moment Yi Xian suddenly became illusory and he returned to reality in the next moment. Black Robe's face sank when he saw this. This spatial abyss is useless against Yi Xian? The experts nearby were just about to attack again when Black Robe raised his right hand, and they immediately retreated to the side. Black Robe opened his right palm and pressed it down lightly. In an instant, countless strands of terrifying spatial pressure suddenly surged out from all around Yi Xian. The fifth layer of spacetime, the 10,000-dimensional spatial pressure. Yi Xian's face was expressionless as he allowed the spatial pressure to drown him. However, he was completely unharmed. Black Robe's eyes narrowed. How could this be possible? As he spoke, he opened his palm and the spacetime spiritual seal showed up in his hand. The next second, the space over Yi Xian's head suddenly split open. Then a spacetime pressure that was dozens of times stronger than before swept down. As the spacetime pressure appeared, the space around him disappeared bit by bit. The sixth layer of spacetime pressure. Yi Xian still didn't dodge and he allowed the spatial pressure to crush down on him. Boom. The area where Yi Xian was directly annihilated, but he was completely unharmed. Seeing this, Black Robe's pupils suddenly shrank. How is this possible? In the distance, Yi Xian's lips curled into a ferocious smile. I'm immune to any spatial pressure. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared on the spot. A ray of sword light instantly slashed in front of Black Robe, who blocked it with his arm. Boom. The ray of sword light shattered, and at this moment, a ray of sword light suddenly engulfed him. Core sword domain. Boom. As the ray of sword light shattered, Black Robe retreated rapidly. As he retreated, a blood-red flying sword suddenly slashed at him. Black Robe once again blocked it with his arm. Black Robe's right arm was sent flying, and at the same time the green profound sword slashed at Black Robe's chest. Bang! Black Robe retreated tens of thousands of feet away and his body shattered. Seeing this, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. He suddenly realized that when the spatial abyss and spatial pressure were ineffective against him, these so-called Phase 13 experts in front of him weren't that strong. What was the difference between a 10th stage and a 13th stage? In terms of spacetime attainments, a 13th phase expert could directly use the 5th layer of spacetime to kill a 10th phase expert. The spacetime pressure of the 5th layer of spacetime was definitely not something a 10th phase expert could withstand. But Yi Xian was an exception. He was immune to spacetime pressure. From another perspective, if one wanted to kill Yi Xian, they could not use spacetime pressure. They could only use pure strength. Black Robe looked at Yi Xian. Why is spacetime pressure ineffective against you? A wisp of a savage smile appeared on the corners of Yi Xian's mouth. Because I have a younger sister, understand? The black-robed elder. P.S. Asking for votes. Chapter 1879. Sister. Black Robe was stunned. What the hell? Xian didn't waste his breath. He transformed into a blood-red ray of light and vanished on the spot. Black Robe's pupils constricted. He who only had his soul left, couldn't resist Xian at all. He hurriedly said, "Attack together." Black Robe's pupils constricted. The mysterious experts behind him charged at Xian. Rumble. In an instant the entire star region started to collapse bit by bit. When their space-time pressure was ineffective against Xian, the mysterious experts had a headache. This human sword was too terrifying. They didn't dare to go head-on against the green profound sword in Xian's hand. It wasn't just the sword, the human sword technique was terrifying as well. Most importantly, even if they escaped into the fifth layer of spacetime, the human could still follow them in. Although the human couldn't use the spacetime pressure of the fifth layer, he could still enter it. When they saw Xian enter the fifth layer of spacetime, they were stunned. What's going on? A rank 10 expert can actually enter the fifth layer of spacetime? Most importantly, the spacetime energy of the fifth layer of spacetime was useless against this human. In the fifth layer of spacetime, Xian suddenly slashed down with his sword. A blood-red ray of light instantly slashed down, and everywhere it passed, the spacetime energy of the fifth layer of spacetime dodged. In the distance, the mysterious expert's expressions were unsightly to the extreme. Meanwhile, a rank 13 expert suddenly took a step forward. He slowly clenched his right hand, and in an instant, a powerful force condensed in his fist. In the next moment he suddenly smashed his fist forward. Rumble. The blood-red ray of light shattered, and the rank 13 expert retreated repeatedly. Meanwhile, a flying sword suddenly slashed down. The rank 13 expert's pupils constricted. He opened his palm and a round shield suddenly appeared in front of him. Rumble. The round shield shattered. At the same time he retreated explosively, and he retreated directly into the endless spacetime abyss. After entering the spacetime abyss, the expert's expression changed drastically. They weren't like Xian who could ignore the spacetime abyss. There was an extremely terrifying spacetime gravity in the spacetime abyss, and this was what experts like them feared the most. The stronger the spacetime, the more terrifying the spacetime abyss. After entering the spacetime abyss, the expert fell at a terrifying speed. In the process of falling, his physical body began to be destroyed bit by bit. The expressions of the nearby mysterious experts changed when they witnessed this scene, and they retreated in unison. No one dared to save him. There was no way to save him. If they wanted to save him, they had to enter the spacetime abyss. But how could they dare to enter the spacetime abyss? Just like that, the expert who fell into the spacetime abyss was annihilated bit by bit in despair. Meanwhile, Xian suddenly said, "So all of you are so afraid of the spacetime abyss." When they heard Xian's words, the expressions of the remaining 4 rank 13 powerhouses changed greatly, and they didn't hesitate to leave the fifth layer of space. Originally, this place was their advantage, but at this moment, they discovered that this place had become Xian's advantage. Not only could Xian ignore the spacetime pressure, but he could also ignore the spacetime abyss. How could they fight against him? In the distance, Black Robe stared fixedly at Xian. At this moment he was shocked to the extreme. He hadn't imagined that not only could Xian enter the fifth layer of space, he was even immune to the spacetime pressure. Without the spacetime pressure, he noticed that they didn't have any advantage when facing Xian. When he thought up to here, Black Robe had the intention to retreat. Right at this moment, Xian suddenly vanished on the spot and Black Robe's pupils constricted. "Stop him." As soon as he finished speaking, the 3 rank 13 powerhouses by his side charged at Xian, whereas Black Robe himself turned around and vanished at the end of the starry sky, and the rank 12 powerhouses retreated successively. Presently they weren't a threat to Xian at all. In the distance, Xian was fighting 3 rank 13 powerhouses by himself. Rumble. Xian was suddenly blasted back by a punch from one of the powerhouses, and he just stopped when an afterimage instantly flashed over. At the same time, an extremely terrifying force shot straight towards his face. Xian stomped his right foot on the ground, and in an instant, a wave of sword light enveloped him. Core sword domain. Rumble. The wave of sword light shattered as soon as it appeared, but the rank 13 powerhouse was blasted back over 10 kilometers. Meanwhile, the space above Yi Xian suddenly split open and a fist descended straight down. Yi Xian's body suddenly became illusory. In the next moment he'd entered the fifth layer of space, and the fist had vanished without a trace. The expressions of the three rank 13 powerhouses instantly became unsightly when they witnessed this scene. Once Yi Xian entered the fifth layer of space, they wouldn't be able to do anything, because they didn't dare to enter the fifth layer of space at all. If they did, then they might be sent into the space-time abyss by Yi Xian, and once they were sent into the space-time abyss, then they would definitely die. Most importantly, Yi Xian wasn't afraid of the space-time abyss. The three powerhouses glanced at each other, but they didn't attack again. Instead, they turned around and vanished into the distance. It was meaningless to continue fighting because they couldn't do anything to Yi Xian. Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the end of the starry sky. After a while he turned around and left, and it didn't take long for him to arrive at Heaven's Sanctum. Heaven's Sanctum was located in the heavenly world. As one of the three great powers in the heavenly spirit cosmos, Heaven's Sanctum's strength was naturally unquestionable. As soon as Yi Xian arrived in Heaven's Sanctum, the master of Heaven's Sanctum, Mu Tian, appeared in front of him. Mu Tian's expression instantly became unsightly when he saw that Yi Xian was still alive. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Let me ask you a question. Who is that black-robed man?" Mu Tian fell silent. Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword. A sword howl resounded abruptly. In the distance, Mu Tian's expression changed drastically, and then he swiftly took a step forward and smashed his fist forward. At the instant this fist smashed forward, a strand of extremely terrifying spatial pressure instantly drowned Yi Xian's sword. Rumble. The entire horizon suddenly boiled, and in the next moment, Yi Xian's profound azure sword suddenly appeared in front of Mu Tian. Mu Tian's pupils shrank. My space-time pressure is actually useless against this sword. He didn't have time to think and blocked with his arms. Boom. Mu Tian's arms instantly broke and he instantly retreated 1,000 feet away. But before he could stop, a flying sword suddenly slashed at him. Mu Tian's pupils shrank. He stomped his right foot and his entire body directly entered the fifth layer of space-time. However, in the next moment, the profound azure sword actually followed him into the fifth layer of space-time. Mu Tian was shocked in his heart. With a thought, a golden runic shield appeared in front of him. Boom. The golden runic shield was directly smashed by the profound azure sword. But at this moment, Mu Tian had already retreated to the other side. Mu Tian's expression changed drastically when he saw that Yi Xian still wanted to attack, and he hurriedly said, "The Spirit Beast clan." "He's from the Spirit Beast clan." Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. The Spirit Beast clan that left this cosmos and became a level 5 civilization? Mu Tian took a deep look at Yi Xian. That's right. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. Why would they target me? Moreover, if I'm not wrong, they've been targeting me the moment I arrived in this cosmos. Am I right? Mu Tian fell silent. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Next I'll ask you a question and you'll answer it. If you're slow, I'll slaughter your heaven's palace." Mu Tian's expression instantly changed and he stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said again, "Answer my question just now." Mu Tian's expression was slightly unsightly. When had the heaven's palace ever been threatened like this? At this moment Yi Xian suddenly opened his right hand, and the profound azure sword flew directly into the heaven's palace. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 bloody heads flew into the sky. Mu Tian immediately said, "I wanted to deal with the otherworldly demonic tribe, so I asked for their help. However, I didn't expect them to discover the sword in your hand." Yi Xian said, "That means that they're not targeting me on purpose." Mu Tian solemnly said, "Yes." Yi Xian fell silent. "Damn it, so they're scheming after seeing my wealth." Yi Xian asked again, "Where is the Spirit Beast clan?" Mu Tian shook his head, "I don't know." Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Mu Tian continued, "I really don't know. I can only contact them through voice transmission talismans. As for where they are, I don't know." Yi Xian fell silent. At this moment Mu Tian solemnly said, "Sir, our heaven's palace has no ill intentions towards you. Our initial target was the otherworldly demonic tribe, and our heaven's palace has no intention of interfering in the matter between you and the Spirit Beast clan. I hope that you can be magnanimous." Yi Xian pondered for a moment before he said, "I have a good temper and I'm an honest person. To me, anything can be negotiated. However, do you understand what I mean? Mu Tian was stunned for a moment before he said, you. At this point, he seemed to have thought of something and his face darkened. Damn it, you're asking for benefits. Mu Tian glanced at Yi Xian before he opened his palm, and a spatial ring appeared in his hand. There are 5 celestial crystal mines in this spatial ring. Please accept them. Yi Xian opened his palm and the spatial ring flew into his hand. He put it away and turned to leave. Mu Tian's gaze gradually turned dark after Yi Xian left. Human, this enmity. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of Mu Tian. Mu Tian's expression changed drastically. You? Yi Xian grinned. I like to annihilate everything I do. As soon as he finished speaking, the azure profound sword in his hand suddenly vanished and a ray of light flashed. Mu Tian was horrified. At this moment of life and death, he utilized his strongest ability once more, the 5th layer of space. In an instant, boundless spatial pressure obstructed his path. However, it was like the pressure didn't exist before the azure profound sword. The azure profound sword pierced the center of Mu Tian's forehead. Bang! Mu Tian's soul was directly absorbed. Yi Xian gazed at the innate talent below with a calm expression. In the next moment he charged down. Since they were enemies, then he had to annihilate them. He didn't want to see his enemies take revenge if he didn't annihilate them all. Chapter 1880. When Yi Xian charged into heaven's sanctum, cries of agony resounded throughout the entire sanctum. The experts in heaven's sanctum didn't expect to be ambushed by a human and were caught off guard. By the time they reacted, their heads had already flown off their bodies. That was because Yi Xian's sword was simply too fast. However, heaven's sanctum's experts reacted quickly and gathered all the experts in the sanctum. Not only that, the experts of heaven's sanctum began summoning their ancestors. Boom! A ray of white light suddenly shot into the sky from heaven's sanctum. In the next moment, a terrifying aura suddenly swept down from the sky, causing the entire sky to boil. At this moment, Yi Xian had already slipped away. Not only had he killed the sanctum master, he had also killed 2 of the rank 13 experts. Heaven's sanctum would soon be devoured by the otherworldly demonic tribe and the netherspirit tribe. The otherworldly demonic tribe and the netherspirit tribe would definitely not miss this opportunity. As soon as Yi Xian left, the experts of heaven's sanctum who had just summoned their ancestors were dumbfounded. What was going on? At this moment, a woman appeared in the white light above heaven's sanctum. The woman looked 90% similar to a human. The only difference was that she had a horn on her head. This woman was the first sanctum master of heaven's sanctum, Mei Li. Mei Li looked at the distant horizon and opened her palm. Then she clenched her fist and the surrounding space suddenly trembled. Gradually, a strand of consciousness floated into her palm. It was Mu Tian's consciousness. The strand of consciousness in Mei Li's hand trembled as though it was saying something. A moment later it completely disappeared. Mei Li fell silent for a moment before turning to the right. In the next moment she disappeared from the spot. At the end of the endless starry sky, after confirming that no one was chasing after him, Yi Xian stopped. The moment he stopped, he suddenly turned around and saw a woman with a horn on her head. It was Mei Li. Yi Xian frowned. Heaven's sanctum? Mei Li shook her head. No. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Then you are? Mei Li looked at Yi Xian, passing by. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Is there something I can help you with? Mei Li's gaze fell onto the profound green sword in Yi Xian's hand before she said, The Spirit Beast clan has already sent a 14th phase expert. Do you know about this? 14th phase master. Yi Xian looked at Mei Li. You are from Heaven's Sanctum. If I'm not wrong, you should be the ancestor that Heaven's Sanctum just summoned. Mei Li pinched a strand of hair with 2 fingers and slowly pulled it down. She smiled and said, What a smart human. Yi Xian slowly tightened his grip on the green profound sword. Meanwhile, Mei Li suddenly said, Don't worry, I'm not interested in you. Yi Xian frowned. What do you mean? Mei Li glanced at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand. I'm interested in this sword. Yi Xian flew into a rage. I'm not as good as a sword? Mei Li blinked. Without this sword, would you be Mu Tian's opponent? Yi Xian was silent. Without the green profound sword he might not be able to beat Mu Tian. Because the reason he could beat Mu Tian was because of the green profound sword's ability to ignore space and time. Mei Li still wanted to say something, but Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "May I ask what phase Mu Tian is? And what phase am I?" Mei Li was silent. Yi Xian then said, "Miss, if you're interested in my sword, then you need to be clear about one thing. That is, I'm not interested in you, do you understand?" Mei Li looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Are you interested in me?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I, Yi Xian, am not interested in women." Mei Li narrowed her eyes. "Human, you should learn to respect me." Yi Xian smiled and said, "You were the one who didn't respect me first." Saying this, he turned around and left. Mei Li suddenly said, "Spirit beast race." Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Do you think I'm afraid of the spirit beast race?" Mei Li looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. She didn't choose to directly attack for two reasons. The first was because of the sword in Yi Xian's hand, and the second was because of Yi Xian's identity. Yi Xian then said, "Miss, let's make a deal. Are you interested?" Mei Li smiled and asked, "What deal?" Yi Xian said, "Pardon me for asking, but what is Mrs. current strength?" Mei Li's lips curled up. "Killing a 14th phase expert shouldn't be a problem." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "How big is the gap between me and a 14th phase expert?" Mei Li said, "If you don't use the sword in your hand, a 13th phase expert can easily kill you. If you use that sword." "I can't say." Yi Xian looked at Mei Li. "Try it?" Mei Li nodded. "All right." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly disappeared on the spot. Yi Xian's pupils shrank. He was just about to use his invincible sword domain. Bang. As a muffled sound rang out, Yi Xian retreated hundreds of thousands of feet away. As soon as he stopped, 2 fingers touched his forehead. Mei Li looked at Yi Xian. After a moment, she withdrew her fingers and smiled. "This gap seems a bit big." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Why are you so fast?" Mei Li said, "Space-time folding." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Space-time folding?" Mei Li nodded. "At our level we can use space-time folding." As she spoke, she retreated thousands of meters away and waved her right hand. In an instant, the space where she and Yi Xian were directly folded. At the same time, she appeared in front of Yi Xian. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's expression became serious. Mei Li said, "Space-time folding. From a certain perspective, this is currently the fastest known speed." Yi Xian was silent. At this moment, he was thinking that if his flying sword could be transported in this way. Mei Li smiled. "You seem to be interested." Yi Xian looked at Mei Li. "Let's make a deal. Are you interested?" Mei Li nodded. "Tell me about it." Yi Xian said, "I can let you study my sword. In exchange, you have to follow me for 3 months. During this period, you have to protect me. Not only that, you have to teach me." Mei Li smiled. "Why?" Yi Xian asked, "How many layers of space-time can your body enter?" Mei Li said, "The 6th layer." Yi Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword entered the 7th layer of space-time. Seeing this scene, the smile on Mei Li's face gradually disappeared. After a moment, she looked at Yi Xian. "The limit of your sword is the 7th layer of space-time?" Yi Xian smiled. "Take a guess." Mei Li took a deep look at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand. "The deal you mentioned is a deal." With that, she opened her palm and asked for the sword. However, Yi Xian kept the green profound sword. "Teach me how to fold space-time first." Mei Li looked at Yi Xian and did not say anything. Yi Xian smiled. "Is there a problem?" Mei Li smiled. "No problem." Yi Xian nodded. "How should I address you, miss?" Mei Li said, "Mei Li." Yi Xian said, "Miss Mei Li, let's enter Xiao Ta and slowly study it." With that, he directly brought Mei Li into Xiao Ta. After entering Xiao Ta, Mei Li's face suddenly became solemn. "The space-time in your tower." With that, she looked at Yi Xian. 10 years in this world is 1 day outside." Yi Xian looked at Mei Li and was slightly shocked. This woman actually saw through it at a glance. Mei Li looked deeply at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, you are not simple. You know, this world is independent of the space-time outside. Not only that, the other party also carried out a wonderful reversal of the space-time in this tower. This is not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing is that the other party made this world have a certain connection with the outside world." With that, she was silent for a long time, then said, "The space-time path contained within it has already exceeded my understanding. I can't explain it completely." Yi Xian smiled. "It's just a small matter. Don't make a fuss about it." Mei Li frowned slightly. A small matter? Young Master Yi, do you know what this means? Even the illusion race, which has reached a level 6 civilization, can't do this. Illusion race. Yi Xian blinked. You know about the illusion race? Mei Li looked at Yi Xian. You know about the illusion race too? Yi Xian said with a straight face. Of course. Mei Li stared at Yi Xian. I wonder what is the relationship between young Master Yi and the illusion race. Yi Xian blinked, then said, This? Do you really want to know? Mei Li nodded. I'm curious. Yi Xian smiled. To be honest, the illusion race is a subsidiary race of my Yang family. If you want to be arrogant, you should brag as much as you can. You don't have to pay taxes anyway. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Mei Li's mouth twitched. Young Master Yi, are you sure? Yi Xian nodded. Very sure. Mei Li was silent. Do you know how terrifying the illusion race is? Yi Xian smiled. Is it very terrifying? Mei Li smiled. As far as I know, within the illusion race, they have 136 subsidiary races, and the lowest among them is a level 5 civilization. Not only that, but the illusion race also controls 19 super-universes. The scope of their influence is unimaginable. They are also known as the #1 race in the universe. Young Master Yi, you said that they are a subsidiary race of your Yang family? Yi Xian was a little embarrassed. Damn, wasn't this bragging a little too much? However, it was hard to back down now, so he could only continue bragging. Yi Xian laughed. Miss Mei Li, do you know how powerful my Yang family is? Mei Li looked at Yi Xian. Yang family? Forgive me for being blunt, but I've never heard of it. Yi Xian's face darkened. This dad was too low-key. Mei Li smiled and said, Young Master Yi, can you tell me more about this Yang clan? Yi Xian smiled and said, I am the Yang clan's patriarch. Oh no, my father is the patriarch. I am the Yang clan's young patriarch. Do you know my father? A man who likes to wear green robes. Mei Li shook her head. Never heard of it. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, Miss Mei Li's level is too low. Mei Li, Yi Xian continued. In any case, as long as I don't die, my Yang clan will be invincible. Oh, that's not right. As long as my father doesn't die, my Yang clan will be invincible. If you don't agree, feel free to find my father. The azure-robed man, Xiaota suddenly said, Young Master, you're really awesome. You can brag all you want, but if there's a problem, I'll take responsibility. P.S. Let me ask everyone a question. How many chapters do you think an author needs for the readers to be willing to vote for them? Chapter 1881. Mei Li glanced at Yi Xian and did not speak. She naturally did not believe Yi Xian's words. This human did not look like an honest person. However, she did not say anything else. Yi Xian did not say anything else and began to ask Mei Li about space-time. Space-time folding. If he could fold space-time coupled with his azure sword, who could stop him? In the following period of time, Yi Xian learned how to fold space-time from Mei Li every day. It was not difficult to fold space-time. When he folded the first space-time, he did it very easily. However, when he folded the second space-time, it was a little difficult. However, he still managed to do it in 3 days. When he folded the third spacetime, the difficulty increased by at least 10 times. In Mei Li's words, spacetime had density. The higher it was, the thicker the spacetime was. The thicker the spacetime was, the harder it was to fold. What was spacetime density? In order to figure this out, Yi Xian spent nearly a month. Everything had density. Spacetime density was just one of them. Not long after, Yi Xian was able to fold the third spacetime. After that, he began to familiarize himself with the fourth spacetime. While Yi Xian was practicing the fourth spacetime, Mei Li was studying his azure sword. Looking at the azure sword in her hand, Mei Li fell into deep thought. The profoundness of this sword had completely exceeded her understanding, especially the spacetime path. It was so profound that even Xiaota could not compare to it. Who was the one who created this? At this moment, she no longer had any desire for revenge. Even if the person behind this human was not strong enough to make the illusion clan submit, he was not someone that Heaven's sanctum could provoke. Her current goal was to slowly study the azure sword. It would be best if she could fully understand it. She believed that if she could fully understand it, she would be able to reach another level. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly walked in front of Mei Li. Miss Mei Li, I can already fold the fourth spacetime. But this fifth spacetime. Mei Li put down the azure sword and smiled. It's difficult, right? Yi Xian nodded. I realize that it's impossible to fold. Mei Li looked at Yi Xian. Do you know why the fifth spacetime is so difficult? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Mei Li said, the fifth layer of time and space supports the 10,000 dimensional time and space. It is made up of countless layers of time and space. Its density is about 100 times that of the fourth layer of time and space. Do you think it's easy for you to fold spacetime with such density? Yi Xian quickly asked. Is there any other way? After pondering for a moment, Mei Li said, there are two methods. The first is to take it slow. After cultivating for 1,000 years, you should be able to do it. 1,000 years. Yi Xian's expression froze. In other words, it would take a few months. On second thought, it didn't seem to be too long. After all, he was in Xiao Tao's world. Mei Li continued, there's another way, and that's to fuse with the fifth layer of space-time. Yi Xian was stunned and said, fuse with the fifth layer of space-time? Mei Li nodded. This is more difficult, but there are many benefits. If you can fuse with the fifth layer of spacetime, not only can you fold spacetime, but you can also reverse spacetime and distort spacetime. Yi Xian blinked. Why didn't you say so earlier? Mei Li frowned slightly. What do you mean? Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm and the azure sword appeared in his hand. The next moment he directly escaped into the fifth layer of spacetime. At this moment he had fused with the fifth layer of spacetime. Seeing this scene, Mei Li's expression instantly became solemn. You, as she spoke, she seemed to have thought of something and looked at the azure sword in Yi Xian's hand. It's your sword. Yi Xian smiled. Yes. Mei Li stared at Yi Xian. This sword can actually allow you to fuse with spacetime. Yi Xian nodded and seemed to have thought of something. He asked, Miss Mei Li, under normal circumstances, how long does it take to fuse with the fifth layer of spacetime? Mei Li said in a low voice, at least 100,000 years. Yi Xian was stunned. 100,000 years? Are you serious? Mei Li was a little annoyed. Do you think it's easy to fuse with spacetime? Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. I think it's quite easy. Mei Li said angrily, that's because you have this sword. If you were to cultivate normally, it would be absolutely impossible without tens of thousands of years. Yi Xian looked at the azure sword in his hand and smiled. Actually, I also want to cultivate normally, but my strength doesn't allow it. Mei Li suddenly closed her eyes and placed her right hand on her chest. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, Mei Li, what's wrong? Mei Li glanced at Yi Xian. Chest pain. Yi Xian subconsciously said, do you want me to help you rub it? After saying that, he regretted it. Damn it. What was he thinking? Mei Li smiled faintly. Help me rub it? Yi Xian laughed. Miss Mei Li, I'm just joking. I, Yi Xian, have never been interested in women. Let's get down to business. Miss Mei Li, now that I have fused with the fifth layer of spacetime, what should I do next? Mei Li glanced at Yi Xian and said lightly, it's very simple. Feel them and truly understand their nature. Since you can fuse with them, it's not difficult to do so. Yi Xian nodded and tried. Soon a smile appeared on his face. Just like what Mei Li said, it was really not difficult. Of course, the premise was that he could fuse with the fifth layer of spacetime. Before long, Yi Xian started trying to fold the fifth layer of spacetime. Mei Li took a deep look at Yi Xian and she was extremely shocked. She realized that she had underestimated the green profound sword. Yi Xian actually relied on this sword to fuse with the fifth layer of spacetime. Exactly how terrifying is this sword? There was no answer. Because the knowledge of spacetime contained in this sword had exceeded her current understanding. Before long, Yi Xian was able to fold the fifth layer of spacetime, but he didn't continue to fold the sixth layer of spacetime. He had to first fuse the Tao of spacetime folding with the flying sword. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword silently appeared 3 kilometers away. A smile appeared on the corners of Yi Xian's mouth when he saw this. It's feasible. This spacetime folding can really be fused with the flying sword. Mei Li glanced at Yi Xian and a wisp of seriousness appeared in her eyes. After Yi Xian's flying sword utilized spacetime folding, its speed could only be described as terrifying. It could be said that the sword just now was enough to instantly kill some Phase 13 experts. It was an instant kill. Moreover, Yi Xian's flying sword had another terrifying aspect, and that was the sword. This green profound sword wasn't an ordinary sword, and there was probably nothing in this world that could stop it. After this sword passed, there was no other way other than using spacetime folding to escape. No one dared to go head-on against Yi Xian's sword. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly became illusory and the next moment he had already entered the sixth layer of spacetime. Seeing this, Mei Li looked at Yi Xian as if she was looking at a monster, and her voice trembled as she said, You can even enter the sixth layer of spacetime? Yi Xian smiled and said, That's right. Why is it very difficult to enter the sixth layer of spacetime? Mei Li said angrily, Are you talking like a human? Do you know how long it took me to enter the sixth layer of spacetime? A whole 160,000 years. 160,000 years. Do you know how I spent those 160,000 years? Yi Xian frowned slightly. 160,000 years. Isn't that too exaggerated? Mei Li was so angry that her eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. Try not using this sword. Big brother, I beg you don't try using this sword. Yi Xian said seriously, This sword was made for me by my sister. You can also get your sister to make one for you. Mei Li slowly closed her eyes and she clenched her fists and her chest heaved up and down. She couldn't help but want to hit someone. Yi Xian laughed. Miss Mei Li, don't be angry, I have no ill intentions. I know that cultivation is not easy, and using this sword to enter the sixth layer of spacetime is equivalent to taking a shortcut. I am not complacent because of this because I know that it is this sword that brought me this, if not for this sword. Speaking up to this point he thought for a moment and then said, If not for this sword I think I can get Qing to make another one for me. The problem is that Yi is not very big. Mei Li was so angry that she directly spat out a mouthful of blood. This is too damn infuriating. Yi Xian still wanted to say something, but Mei Li suddenly said angrily, You shut up. You shut up. If you dare to speak I will kill you. After saying that she turned around and left. She really didn't want to listen to Yi Xian anymore. This human's words could anger her to death. Seeing Mei Li leave, Yi Xian was a little speechless. He did not dwell on the problem of whether the sword was a sword or not, but began to fuse with the sixth layer of spacetime. With the help of the Xian Profound Sword, it was not difficult to fuse with the sixth layer of spacetime. Not long after, he fused with the sixth layer of spacetime and then began to fold the sixth layer of spacetime. This time it was not as simple as the last time because the density of the sixth layer of spacetime was at least 100 times thicker than the fifth layer of spacetime. It was very, very difficult to fold the sixth layer of spacetime. Yi Xian was also a little troubled. However, he did not give up and continued to try. Time passed bit by bit. More than 10 years later, Mei Li, who was studying the Xian Profound Sword, suddenly frowned. In the next moment she looked up. They're here. Not far from Mei Li, Yi Xian was a little puzzled. What's here? Mei Li looked at Yi Xian. Spirit Beast Clan's experts. Yi Xian frowned. He left Xiao. Just as he left Xiao Ta, the black-robed man and a group of mysterious experts appeared in front of him. The black-robed man was about to speak, but Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm. In the next moment the black-robed man's head flew out before he could even react. At the same time, the Xian Profound Sword directly absorbed the black-robed man's soul. All the Spirit Beast Clan's experts were stunned. Yi Xian glanced at the Spirit Beast Clan's experts. Call your ancestors. I am invincible, do as you wish. Mei Li, all the Spirit Beast Clan's experts.